And that was Wiping Out by Jimmy Tenor. And you're listening to Radio Graffiti on Newgrounds Radio. Welcome, everybody, to, I think we're at episode 9 right now. And tonight, we have returning guest, ft.AZOOKARA on Twitter, / CODY Collins.
Thank you. What is up?
Welcome back to the
everybody?
show, CODY.
Yeah. How are you doing tonight, Gintz?
Yeah, tonight is a very interesting night. We're going to be talking about a few interesting topics tonight. I'm glad to have you on board for it, actually, because I've been meaning to talk about a few of these things with somebody that is a bit of a professional, for lack of a better word.
I don't know. Professional's really stretching the definition here on this subject, but I'll take fanatic probably.
A
Crazed
professional
lunatic
fanatic
might work. Yeah, anything that fits within all of that, like crazed lunatic probably works best.
But yeah, this is the first official show that we're recording together. This is not the first show that we have done together for everybody listening in.
Second show for Radio Graffiti. First that's been recorded officially. I was on the pilot episode.
Yeah.
Several episodes ago. 9 episodes ago? Or was it 10?
I think it would be 10 episodes ago.
10 episodes ago.
Yeah. It's when Tom Fulp gave me, the okay to just hey, you want to try out a show? And I was like, okay. I want to do this, interview type show with music happening in the background. And I want to, invite different people, different guests. And I was like, hey, who else to have as, my first guest than, my buddy CODY / ft.AZOO.
Yeah, and then we did a bunch of... Oh, boy, I forgot completely about the dinging clock in the background of my house. Excuse that, everyone.
Nah, it's all good.
It's 8 bong here. But yeah, our first step was just a bunch of rambling, and then we went on about, an old... a pitch that I made about older versions of the Ed, Edd n Eddy cast and making a show based off of that concept.
Yeah, the adult Ed, Edd n Eddy AU that you did. Here's the music on screen for everybody listening. But I'm gonna go to CODY's Newgrounds if I can find it here. There it is. And for everybody looking on screen right now, here is the adult designs that we discussed last time. And then literally the day of when we discussed it, it blew up everywhere.
Oh, it went huge, and it was overwhelming. There was several days where my notifications kept blowing up, and you see, the thing is that you could always say, well, what if you just muted it? And it's well, yeah, but then I'd miss all the funny things people have to say about
it. Everyone calling Rolf Kaido from One Piece.
Everyone,
and also
calling Jimmy
Donflamenco,
non-stop. That was hundreds of replies that just kept saying that. I was please stop talking.
They're on screen right now. I love also that I can have you on right now so we can discuss the aftermath of that just a little bit.
Oh yeah, that was crazy. The amount of people who loved it, that made me very happy. Though, yeah, it was kind of overwhelming, the amount of response it got. I guess that's what happens when you take, it's the tried and true classic method of taking old IP, especially a cartoon people are nostalgic for, and say, but what if they were older? And it just blows up, Except, and in a way, I kind of had this I wouldn't say worry, but sorta, that it was gonna blow up just because I know that's how it goes. And I know that's how it goes because, a lot of bad ones have also blown up like that too, right? It's always the ones where it's here's Max Goof now as an adult, and it's him put photoshopped onto a hot dude's body taking a selfie,
Here's Double D smoking weed.
Yeah, or it's something like that, right? Where they're drug dealers and they're all cracked out, it's always something like that. It's one of the two. It's always we're super sexy or we're super fucked up, right? And yeah. I was there's gotta at least be a realistic one out here, right? There's gotta be, because I got really exhausted that most of the adult Ed and Eddie stuff was either something like that, or it was shipping art of them and the Cankers, or them with each other, you know. And it was like, come on, let's get real for a minute.
let's
Let's make a...
let's keep the honesty of the series alive.
Yeah, because that's the thing that makes me like Ed and Eddie. It's just how brutally, like, I'd say, how is it about its humor and how it handles its characters? It's very deprecative on its characters. Maybe is the word.
Yeah.
Everybody is kind of a shitbag
Yeah.
in Ed and Eddie, and I kind of love that. And but also that's part of what makes the characters human as well.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
have their flaws, and that's what makes them entertaining. And it's interesting to see them fail and like interact with each other's flaws. Like there's natural friction within Ed and Eddie that makes the show very entertaining. Yeah.
The characters are very charming, but they're also kind of shitty and mean. So
Yeah.
it's pretty good. It's just a really good character study show, and I wanted to reflect that in a future spin on the characters, because my God, I've seen maybe one or two examples of it ever beforehand, but everything else is always like Ed and Eddie High School AU. Everyone looks like they came out of the CW version of Ed and Eddie now,
Yeah.
or something like that. It's like, come on.
So for everybody listening in, just in case if you don't know what Ed and Eddie is, you've been living on a rock. But in case you don't know, Ed and Eddie has been a show that has been running on Cartoon Network in the early 2000s by Danny Antonucci, and
AKA Cartoons Production. Yeah, that whole show.
Yeah.
That show lasted a decade for 6 seasons because it was amazing and everybody loved it for good reason. And if you don't love it, what the fuck? Anyways.
But yes, that was that show. It had how many seasons? 3 seasons?
No, 6. Yeah,
6
like
seasons.
It had 6.
6 seasons and a movie.
Technically 5 seasons. I mean, it was just a really long 5th season. It's just a few episodes for season 6.
Yeah.
But yeah, it had a movie, and that show is a constant escalation upward of like how extreme can you abstract your characters.
Yeah.
And
it's tons of fun. It's a phenomenal case study of a show. Also for anybody tuning in and listening in right now, tonight we have AZOOKARA on Twitter, Azoo on Newgrounds / Cody Collins. He is a character designer, viz dev creator, and he makes currently The Odd Hustle.
Yeah, that's my cartoon pitch, animation comic thing pitch, The Odd Hustle.
Yeah.
Things aren't really being posted too terribly often on my Twitter, etc. Of that, it's all kind of hushy hush right now. But yeah, it's my main thing. I've mostly been posting lately. Instead of things about The Odd Hustle, I've been spending a lot of time on my main side hobby. My main side hobby being to be an absolute maniac fanboy for I guess Fallen Kings.
Fallen Kings, yeah.
Yeah. So
that's actually stuff we're gonna be talking. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Imagine your fate being the worshiper of a fallen king. What a terrible life to live.
So depends on what you consider a fallen king, because like if we're talking about Sega, I'd say Sega's still up and kicking.
We'll get to it, I guess.
But
I wouldn't say they were a particularly great king when they were kicking either. But we'll get to it, you know. But yeah, I guess tonight's discussions are really centric around Sega and their and all their honestly their great IPs and my history with Sega, being still the one of the few Sega fans, like I'd say Sega true type people growing up. I guess I can't even truly say that. I mean, but I'm super dedicated to it. I mean,
I wish I could say I were as dedicated as you are. That said, I do have a lot of love for Sega, and like it played a big part of my childhood.
I mean, I couldn't blame anybody for not being as into it as I am, because I mean they've been they as a major thing on par with Nintendo and Sony and shit has been like it's over 20 years since the Dreamcast launched. So and like almost been no, it's been over 20 years since the Dreamcast died. So I get it, right? But
Yeah. Yeah.
awesome to say that, isn't it? It's great. Awesome. Love it. Uh, uh, love
I
to dwell on that. My history with Sega, I guess I should start there. Maybe is since this is going to end up being basically a therapy session about Sega.
yeah, that's why I brought you on so we can both share both of
both
our
have
grievances. Yeah.
both have our therapy session over Sega. Yeah. So as a kid, uh, I would say that me being born in '93 or so, I kind of missed the biggest heights of the console wars. Like that was the biggest heights of it were like 1989 through 1994 or 95, and everybody was like, pick a side: are you Nintendo or Sega?
Are
You
you a
know,
Nintendork or are you a Seg gambler? I don't know.
as Sega Chad or a Virgin Nintendo fan. One of the
Yeah.
two. Which one are you? Kind of thing was like the big discourse of the early '90s. But me being born in '93, I didn't get into video games until I'd say '98, '99, and my first interactions with games were my first interaction with a game console outside of like edutainment PC point and click games like Disney Storybook shit or Bruder Bund, however you say that junk. Outside of that little window, my first proper video game experience was seeing my cousin and my uncle play Sonic 2 on a Genesis. And then
Okay.
yeah, so that was my first in and then playing a little bit of it. That was my first experience with any like actual video game. And then after that, my first game I ever owned was Sonic R for the PC.
That's
So
a
that
that's a that's a fun game to like be your first to own.
yeah, I know, right? That was my first game, and like that game you can beat in about 30 minutes. I didn't, I didn't know how to beat that game until years later because I was, a baby on
Sonic
the
R was a
PC.
little abstract, yeah.
Yeah, it's your first game. It's like your first game you ever owned, and it's a 3D game, right? That's a little abstract.
Yeah.
Um, my first console I ever owned though was a Nintendo 64, and that was because of Pokemon. Pokemon blew up in '98, '99, and I was right there with it. I watched the anime and got really hyped to play the games. I didn't really play the main Game Boy games till like a couple years later. I mostly played Pokemon Snap on N64,
Yeah.
another game you can beat in 30 minutes. Uh,
Oh, that game took me for I don't think I ever beat Pokemon Snap actually.
oh, it's so easy. Like I can literally speedrun it in like less than half an hour. It's fast and it's so short. Um, you can like, and I'm talking 100%. That's like the most basic run through of it is that. Yeah, but no, that's a fun little game, and I played that and the Pokemon Stadium games before I ever played the Game Boy Pokemon games, and I collected, like I went and I collected Pokemon cards, all that shit. So I was a big Pokemon head, and then like got into other Nintendo IPs through Smash Bros. Um, because I saw Pikachu was fighting Jigglypuff, and then another one that looked like Jigglypuff, and I was like, "What was that?" And then like my neighbor across the street said that's Kirby.
Kirby.
Yeah. So yeah, and then I got into Kirby 64, and then got from Blockbuster Star Fox 64 and Ocarina of Time and all that shit, right?
Right.
So by the 90, like by that first time I got into video games, I didn't have a side there because it was still a talk on playgrounds. People were like, "Are you Nintendo, Sega, or Sony kid?" Right?
Right.
And my answer was always like, "Well, it's both Nintendo and Sega. I loved them equally." And
Meanwhile,
honestly,
me, like coming up in America, like I learned English through Pokemon, but like I was like, hey, what games did you like? And I was like, Vib Ribbon, and everyone's
yeah,
like,
what's
what's
that?
that?
Right? That's not even the most popular game Nana Onsha made,
Yeah, and I'm
and
like,
they weren't even that popular.
but growing up in like Europe and just playing all these like
I mean, Vib Ribbon is a class fucking game to start your like game history with, though.
it was
You know?
so that was the first game I like played and owned, like when I had like the PS1
Yeah.
back in the day, but The very, very, very first game I ever played was Duck Hunt, and then after that, Mega Man like 3 on like my cousin's NES.
Okay, okay.
So that's how I like got into games, and then like arcades just became my life for the longest time, especially when I first moved to America. That was
Hell
for me.
yeah. Just hell yeah.
So, and I didn't have a like proper console in America for the longest time until like I was like 9, 10 years old, and that was like the PS2.
There wasn't a lot of arcades where I was at, like, growing up, but I still loved going to them anytime I got the chance.
Yeah, they're.
I
I want them to come back. That's what I want, honestly.
yeah, me too.
And
Arcades are amazing.
and speaking of arcades, Sega.
Yeah,
They were arcade champions. This is something we cannot
they
deny.
were arcade champions. You can't deny that. They were the kings of the arcade. Like, the only people that came even remotely close were Namco and Capcom.
Yeah.
That was it. Like, Sega were the champs, though. They towered over both of them.
They had the cutting edge of so many games. Outrun also like being like, and Space Harrier and all that
Literally stuff. Almost every game they released in arcade was cutting edge of its time. Like, just monstrous games. Just amazing. Which is why Sega championed that so much in like all of their consoles, you know? Even to the point where, you know, people weren't caring about arcade like conversions anymore, but which is a shame because they were amazing. But, you know.
Yeah. Again, for anybody living under a rock, Sega is a video game company. You would know this history. You can give us the history of Sega a bit better than I could.
Yeah, so once upon a time in the 1950s or 1960s, Americans made a company called Service Game. A bunch of they made a bunch of little pinball tables and I guess sometimes some pachinko things. And they did that, and then like they ended up branching off into Japan. And the people that ran Service Games America were really shady, actually, and they went to jail. This is the start of a bad history run for Sega, isn't it?
Sega starts with crime.
Sega starts with crime, probably ends with crime, too. Yeah, kind of cursed this whole company.
It's currently dealing with crime.
Yeah, all the time, forever. Crimes for this company. Anyways, Sega, you know, shortened Service Games to Sega. Yeah, so that's that. And they mostly went to production in Japan throughout the 70s all the way to now. Like, from the late 70s all the way to now, were pretty much moved to Japan and became the main, pretty much the most popular, like, arcade company by far. Especially in their home country, Japan. Loves Sega. So yeah, and then they went into the console business to try to compete with another company that just into the console business after they had a successful arcade run, a little company called Nintendo. And so Sega made the SG-1000, which turned into the Sega Mark III. And these were all variants of the same console, which was released in the United States and Europe as the Master System, and South America, we may have to point out, because it was most successful there. The Master System is extremely successful in South America.
Oh yeah, there's still units being like produced actually to this day.
They're still producing them, yes. Yeah. The Master System was huge in those territories, but in America and Europe and even in pretty much all the major places that seem to influence where commerce goes, like it wasn't. Until Sega popped up on the scene trying to get ahead of the curve in 1989 with the Genesis, which managed to actually break some of the monopoly away from Nintendo, because Nintendo owned about 80% of like
video games. Yeah.
Like yeah. Like they were the ones pretty much controlling the entire supply of the games industry for like the majority of that. Of like their
hardware, software, they had a capstone in the market, especially in the States.
Yes, especially in the States. So Genesis comes up, called Mega Drive in Japan. Honestly, I like both names. You may prefer one or the other. They're both pretty sick names for a console, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yeah, it was starting to take away Nintendo's monopoly, and then absolutely destroyed their monopoly the moment that they introduced a character known as Sonic the Hedgehog. Now, I am a Sonic the Hedgehog encyclopedia, unfortunately. I very much don't like that fact, okay? I don't, but I am. So Yeah, Sonic absolutely destroyed Nintendo to the point where Nintendo had to start putting out like extremely good quality games. It's part of the reason why the SNES library is such a banger list of titles because they had to compete with one IP. One IP made them do that.
The
Like, like fucking Super Metroid and like Earthbound and F Zero and fucking every
Yoshi,
Yoshi's Island, Donkey Kong Country trilogy, all of that exists because they were like, we gotta kill Genesis, man. That Sonic is something else.
that
And he was fucking hell. He was.
that speed
They,
rat. We gotta get rid of him.
we gotta fucking get rid of him, and they couldn't because his games just kept fucking winning, dude. Oh my god. Oh my god. Makes Mario look like dog shit. I'm sorry, Mario.
Back in the day, back in the day.
Sorry, Mario. I didn't mean it. I'm so sorry, buddy.
We love a little Scrimblow. We love a little Maru.
We do love a little Mario. Okay, we love our. Okay, he gets like Sonic gets his. I mean, like Sonic has his time to shine, but then it's very short-lived after the classic trilogy and Sonic CD drops, and all of them are fucking bangers, right? But then, and also Sega has like a decent library of IP that it's trying to build up throughout that gen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Sega of America and Sega of Japan hate each other so much that they end up stepping all over each other's toes, and so um, Sega of Japan wants to introduce a CD add-on to compete with the PC Engine CD, Graphics 16 CD, because the PC Engine is the second most popular console of the 16-bit era in Japan. So Sega was wanting to do something to catch up to them. Of course, PC Engine did it because Nintendo just a few years prior to the Famicom disk system. So, you know, everybody's copying each other. So
Yeah.
they try to make the Sega CD and it's useless, and America tries to market it and it's useless. And it gets a few FMV games that end up getting Sega in trouble with the United States government, which creates the ESRB. Fuck.
Wait, which
That's a lot at once.
Which ESRB games that like caused the not
Okay,
ESRB games?
okay.
What games did
the
the
Sega
FMV
two
games?
two games for the Sega CD: Lethal Enforcers and Night Trap. Both of those games feature what a bunch of concerned soccer moms at the time thought was too violent for children to see, and all of that plus the Sega Genesis had the uncensored version of Mortal Kombat, where the SNES version did not.
Yep.
All of this caused parent outrage and outrage within the U.S. government, and then did an entire breakdown against Sega of America as well as Nintendo of America, which Nintendo did super high horse and snooty about it because they were like, well, we didn't let our game console do these things. We didn't let blood be in Mortal Kombat or the extra gory fatalities, you see. We're on the higher... That
Yeah.
Nintendo of America was really playing the console wars and Sega like that. It was rough.
It's all marketing at the end of the day.
Those times were crazy, bro.
Yeah.
They were nuts.
But hey,
yeah.
thank you, Sega. We have the ESRB.
We have the ESRB now. Woo! But but yeah, which is useful. Actually, it's good that we have that.
Yeah.
Anyways, Sega does a lot of dropping the ball here because they made the Sega CD, and then America thought that the Genesis could just last forever instead of making a new console. So they decided because Sega Japan's CEO was paranoid about the next generation of consoles, specifically a console nobody should have been concerned about, the Atari Jaguar. Yeah,
of all things.
Sega, yeah. He was scared about the Atari Jaguar. So Sega of America said, "I know our solution. We'll just make an upgrade for the Sega Genesis called the 32X, and it's a big mushroom you strap to the top of
the
Genesis,
add-on, yeah.
And it has its own power supply. It has a separate power supply
that you need to plug in on top of the.
So did the Sega CD. Yeah. The Sega CD, 32X, and Genesis, 3 separate power supplies.
For the one console.
A power strip for one console, and it wasn't even a big upgrade. And all this at the same time, Sega of Japan was trying to make the Sega Saturn, but all their budget and resource, like Sega's international budget and resources and marketing and stuff, was being wasted on 2 different consoles that were planned to release at the same time for 2 completely different markets, apparently. Except the Saturn was also coming to the States. So what gives? Why did they even make the 32X?
Yep.
A lot of these decisions were, of course, god awful marketing, and ruined Sega's public like reputation, made them come off as really shady and really like they weren't like that they weren't sure what they wanted to do and didn't and seemed like they were trying to rip off their customers, right? Well, then in comes Sony with their new console that they could have made with both Nintendo and Sega, and there were plans for both to make a console with them, and they said no, we'll make our because it'll be more profitable. And then they made the PlayStation, and then it blew up
Yeah, the
so damn hard.
PlayStation was it took the world by storm. Like the perfect storm actually.
The PS1 is it was massive. I mean, every PlayStation console you can say was massive except maybe three. But yeah, the
Three
PS1
grew
was
into itself, and then
three grew into it. But the first two were explosive. Okay, monstrous.
PS1 and
Um,
PS2 have like untouchable like starts, like to the point again, like Vibravin was my first game ever played, and
yeah, everybody had a PS1 except me.
and
Everyone but me had a PS1 and a PS2. I never had a PS2. Um,
dang,
yeah,
you missed out on like the Gigaton game consoles.
yeah, no, yeah. I missed out on them. I got a PS1 later in life because I actually really like the PS1. It's very cool.
Yeah, the PS1
Um,
has oh what a great like intro console to like
it's got a
start off with.
what an amazing first try, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's played to Sony's detriment because they are also the cockiest company in the entire industry because
Uh,
now they think they can never lose. You know?
they became Sega.
Yeah, they're kind of, like they're really bad these days, especially Sony as Japanese and American sides hate each other just like Sega. Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
History repeats itself. Anyways, back to Sega.
Sony's making cars. Is Sega making cars? No.
They could have. It
Yeah.
wouldn't have been very good.
In an alternate in an alternate universe, imagine Sonic branded cars.
They wouldn't have been very good cars, but hell they. So that's the thing. They would have looked like the best looking cars on Earth. They would have been terrible. They would have fallen apart after 3 miles driven, but they would have looked awesome. Anyways,
That's a design prompt of anything like the Sega car.
how would Sega design a car? Oh God, don't get me started. What era, first of all? And that's the real question. Are we talking
right.
like super like early '90s Genesis kind of like brick like design, or are we talking like Y2K Dreamcast? Anyways,
Dreamcast car would be okay. No,
Dreamcast
whatever.
car.
Continue with
Anyways,
the Sega spiel.
yes. So yeah, during the mid '90s, Sega released Sega Saturn, and suffice to say, it's not very successful. They've ruined their reputation, and also the console is hard to. It can manage to be about as powerful, if not more powerful, than the PlayStation in some ways, but it is a absolute nightmare to program. So nobody wants to work with it, especially
Yeah.
since Sega's ruined said reputation. The Nintendo 64 comes out; it's way more powerful, anyways, and it's got Mario. Crash Bandicoot enters the scene with his ugly ass. So, so now they have a mascot, and it's like, all right, where's Sonic? And Sonic never gets a major game for the Saturn, so that's kind of like the
He's got games for the Saturn.
He's got games for the Saturn, right? He's got, well, there's Sonic R, like I mentioned before, which got ported to PC like a year later because nobody bought it on Saturn.
because the Saturn was not marketed at all or super well.
It really was not. And then Sonic 3D Blast was ported from the Genesis Saturn. It is the best version of that game. It's also not a 3D Sonic game, sadly.
I do like 3D Blast though.
Me too. I do too. I'm glad we agree on that because a lot of the world is not, and I think it's kind of neat. Especially the Saturn version. It has proper 3D special stages, which is dope. And then Sonic Jam, which is a collection of Sonics 1 through 3, which to Japan, they did that because the Genesis was never successful in Japan. So they were trying to reintroduce the Japanese audience to Sonic, but to the States, it felt like an insult because it was like, you mean your answer to where's the new Sonic game is give us the old ones? Fuck you. You know?
Yeah.
That's how people took it. Yeah. Kind of a bad look.
Meanwhile, we do that ad nauseum in this day and age, and we forgive, like, where's new Mega Man Battle Network? Here's old Mega Man Battle Network. Enjoy.
Yeah, I mean, granted, it wouldn't have looked actually have a Sonic game to go with.
You broke up a bit right there. You said,
Oh,
yeah, it wouldn't. Would
it wouldn't have been as bad if Sega had a proper Sonic game to go with it, right? But that's, whatever. Wait, can you hear me? Is it
yeah, I
all
can
good?
hear it. Yeah,
Okay, yeah. I mean, the Saturn has really good games on it. I don't want that to get twisted. Nights into Dreams is, in my opinion, one of the greatest games of all time. Zero cap whatsoever. The game's incredible.
it is a
Um,
very unique and fun game
it is
made by a criminal.
extreme. It don't not right now. Not right now. Later.
Later, okay.
Later. The Panzer Dragoon trilogy are incredible games. The third one is often on the list of greatest games of all time.
Yeah,
Um,
but
Burning Rangers is a dope game. There's a lot of good
yeah,
games on Saturn.
I'm
Okay?
just pointing out the irony of like the American audience like hating it at the time. Like, why give us old game versus nowadays everyone's just like, oh yes, give us the game from last generation on the Wii U that we didn't play on the Switch.
Oh yeah.
Whereas
That's true.
people back then would have been like, why are you giving us the same game again? But like, yeah,
Right. Yeah. Exactly. With our view on it, that would have been seen as a good thing. And to be honest, I don't think that Jam would have been. Again, it wouldn't have been a bad thing if not for just not having a 3D Sonic to offer. It's like it felt really, really cheap to them.
you had the
But
special
yeah,
stage levels in 3D Jam, so you know,
in 3D Blast you have those
3D
special
Blast, yeah,
stages, and in huh?
in 3D Blast, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and in Jam you have the to run around in and do missions in, which is very nice. It's very nice stuff. Okay, it's just not enough for the audience who is getting. Well, they got Mario 64, which revolutionized games forever, and then you have Crash Bandicoot and Spyro, which released 3 games each. You know,
Mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
it's like, what's this? That's nothing to them. Anyways, after fumbling the Saturn for its entire run, also the American branch announcing that Saturn's not their future in like 1997, which meant really nobody was buying shit. Great job, guys. Great market. Um, Sega decides to get to work on their next console, and the next one that they're sorry, I got lost train of thought real quick. The
Yeah,
next console that they're working on is going to be uh, their last chance at trying to win the public over.
so right after the
And
Saturn, everybody.
yeah, the release was in November 1998, and in September 9th, 1999, 999, we saw the release of the Sega Dreamcast.
Yep.
This console is fucking amazing.
I
Okay,
love the Dreamcast. It was
it was
way ahead of its time.
monstrously ahead of its time. It's a beautiful, fantastic console with an extremely great library of games. I mean, everybody who worked on that console were firing off at all cylinders. It was some of the most creative, passionate works that you'd ever see from any game developer ever. Sega was just they were so like they were doing that shit for the craft. It was not even like the games that they were making didn't even seem like they were made in heavy marketability. It was because they just wanted to make really stylish games that they loved to make, and the Dreamcast was just it was beautiful, fantastic.
It also, in my opinion, is like one of the best looking consoles ever.
It's a gorgeous looking console. People give the controller shit, but I really like its space age crazy ass
Yeah.
design, and I love the VMU.
For me, the
As
only competition in terms of like aesthetics for the console was like the PSX, like back in the day.
the little mini PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that thing too. I love it, but that thing steals its design
From the
from
Dreamcast, yeah.
Dreamcast. Yeah, it's trying to go for the bubbly Y2K look. It's like the same shapes and everything for the most part. Same color, eggshell white. Going for the exact same look. Um, yeah, beautiful, amazing console, and then it just like that. Like Sega hemorrhaged way too much money from the 32X, the Sega CD, and the Sega Saturn were like triple whammy, and it was like they couldn't, and there was like nothing they could really do. It was on the market, and it did the best that it could with what it was given, but the problem was that it couldn't do everything.
Oh, you broke up
And
just a little bit right there. I don't
oh,
know, like if
okay,
there's any way we can like adjust.
I don't know. What I was saying is that it's like they were doing the best that they could do with the budget and the time that they were given, but unfortunately, just like it didn't work out for them. Like they hemorrhaged way too much money, and
Right, 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 right.
by the end of it in March 2001, they had to call it quits with the Dreamcast, and Sega exited the console business completely.
Which is a damn shame.
It was
But
devastating. I remember being actually upset as a kid when I heard the news because I thought Sega died, like actually was over, right? And I had been going to a friend's house and seeing their Dreamcast and seeing Sonic Adventure on there and being just blown away by it. I really wanted a Dreamcast as a kid. I really did. And it was over. It just, one day it just ended. And it was extremely upsetting to everyone because I think even when people didn't necessarily care for it in comparison to the, like PS2 or whatever that was oncoming, I don't think people wanted Sega to die,
oh
you
yeah,
know?
not at all. But
Like they
it,
didn't want that, but it was happening.
also
And
for everybody
yeah,
listening, like the Dreamcast was the first console that had designated. Well, it didn't. It was not the first that had designated, but it was the first online like integrated console. You can put like internet port in there.
right. You could browse the internet, right? Like you use like a CD with some bundles for the console. It had a modem that was packed in with it, so you could just hook up to the internet like right out the box.
It was like
Um,
some people's way to play like certain games like online, like fighting games for particular, like
Fighting games, shooting games, most notably the first major MMORPG game to be played on a console, Fantasy Star Online.
yep, Fantasy
Uh,
Star Online
revolutionary title, again from Sonic Team, are fucking gods and masters.
on the
OG
Dreamcast
Sonic
too.
Team.
So
The dream,
the
the
Dreamcast
Dreamcast
pioneered a lot of things that we take for granted nowadays in
pioneered a
consoles.
lot of things, and that Microsoft then took and ripped off for their next for their first,
Yeah.
which came out like at the end of the year that Sega dropped out and was actually a huge success in
Yeah,
comparison.
the
Fuck me.
Xbox. But I
Yeah,
mean, Xbox had Microsoft backing, dude. It had a lot of marketing and
that's
money.
the thing too, is that Sega did too. Whenever the Dreamcast was being made, like it runs on Windows CE. Like they talked to Microsoft to get Windows CE running on the console. So this begins the next chapter of this discussion
Yep.
because now we're getting into the territory of what have I been doing since? Well, I moped about it, then I found out Sonic was coming out on GameCube, so I got fucking GameCube.
Yeah.
That's what I did. And then
Sonic
I was a
Adventure
GameCube.
DX. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I
Just
was a
got.
GameCube kid for that generation, and I didn't get an PS2. I just played a PS2 at a friend's house and never even touched an Xbox until like an OG Xbox until several years later. Um, my journey with consoles ever since has been like I had a 360 and a Wii, and then I had a Wii U and then a Switch, and then I stayed PC gaming ever since then. Pretty much, like that's pretty much been where I've been at. Oh, I had a PS3. I had a PS3. I had one PlayStation console ever,
Yeah, the
I guess.
PS3 of all of them. It
Yeah, but it
had
was
good games. It had good games at the end.
towards the end of its generation is whenever I got it.
Yeah.
Or well, to say my brother actually got it a little bit before the end of the generation. It was his. He got it to play Modern Warfare 2 and Black Ops, but a few years later he stopped using it so much and became a PC only kid, and so I took it and I played Little Big Planet and I played Rock Band Blitz
Oh, Little
and I
Big
played,
Planet. What a great game. Yeah.
yeah, it's great. It's fantastic. And then I played oh shit, just a handful of titles including PS1, which PS1 for myself, and etc.
Hey,
So
I played the PS3 since like a while back, since 2008 or a little bit
mhm.
earlier than that. I do love Sony a lot. I've ever since like
Yeah,
Dreamcast dropped out, I've been playing a bunch of like just PS2 games, PS3
no, yeah,
games.
just yeah, no disrespect by the way. Like I'm not a Sony hater.
Oh yeah.
Sony, I them, but I'm I am not a Sony hater.
But
I
also not a
I
lover. We're not here to like forgive.
I don't know what to say about like forgiving because it's not their fault. Dreamcast died.
But
It's Sega's fault.
well yeah, but boy did they nail that
Yeah, they did
coffin.
lay that final nail in the coffin they announced that they were gonna have like backwards compatibility DVD player inside of their console, right?
Oh,
So
that
that was the end of that.
I miss when consoles used to have backwards compatibility and like all those like, you know,
The PS2's announcement of having both of those things was an extreme megaton that made it truly unstoppable upon its release.
a DVD player on top too?
A DVD player
Phenomenal.
on top, that changed everything. That was like that was like half the households in America had a PS2
Yeah.
just as their DVD player because it was cheap. It was cheap and it was the console that your kid could play. Oh my god, why buy anything else, right?
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I mean, it still is a Blu-ray player to this day, but it's just like, man, I would like to
it
play
doesn't
my
mean
old games.
anything now. Now in the age of streaming, where everything's digital, anyways.
Oh, I
Because of
hate it. I hate it. But at least
yeah, but it is what it is.
it still offers. They still
Yeah,
offer
it
it.
does still offer it. That's true. But no, the thing is that Sega was going to put the DVD player inside of the Dreamcast before its release, and that's the real thing about it, right? Yeah, it's like
Alternate
they just
universe.
skirt. They just yeah, and here we go. We're
Wait.
diving in.
No,
All right.
I'm gonna shit post real fast right now. But
Yes, go on.
alternate universe Dreamcast where it has like it doesn't have a DVD player. They want to compete with Sony, right? They put a VHS player inside.
Ah, yeah, let's go. We're putting Betamax in that shit. Let's get ready for this. We're bringing back what the giant disc. Fuck it, I lost it. The joke's
Laser
over.
discs. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Joke's back on.
No, you're all good. You're all good. But yeah,
No.
the alternate history of what would if? What if Sega didn't
Right.
mess up?
Right. Exactly. I have constructed a very over since the beginning of 2019, I would say. I've been constructing for years now this mad rambling alternate history. What would it look like if the Dreamcast survived? How would it survive? How do we make it sustain itself so that it can survive? And what would the future look like from out there? Um, so my first thing is obviously that like to be mentioned, it should have had a DVD player in it. It should have. But here's the
Yeah.
thing, like, but here's the thing, because they were saying that they wanted to put a DVD player in it. It's like, why didn't you? And their answer was because, well, we needed it to be as low budget as possible, so it'd be, we needed the console to be as cheap as possible, so it would be more appealing to people who who wanted to get the next PlayStation, so we wanted to have an upper hand over them. It was like, yeah, but if you really wanted an upper hand, you should put the DVD player in. They didn't,
On
and,
one end, I can understand the idea behind that.
but it's really short-sighted. Is the thing
Yeah.
because it led to where all the discs, the GD-ROMs as they're called, were 1 GB each, so they could only hold that much, while a DVD could hold 4.6 gigs. Come on now.
Yep.
That's a world of difference. And like Dreamcast games have to be like multiple discs just to hold what one PlayStation 2 one could probably hold. That's crazy. That, and also there was a loophole inside of the GD-ROM disc system that allowed you to make pirate games very easily by burning CDs and then just cutting some of the audio files out so it fits within the 650 megabyte range. Yeah, wonderful, awesome. Just more problems to pile against it. It should have been a DVD player, but they felt like they needed the console. So on one hand, I get it, because one of the main reasons why the Saturn looked really bad compared to the PlayStation 1 was because the Saturn was sold for $399, and a Sony rep at E3 right after they announced that went on stage right afterward and said $299. That's all they said. And
You broke up a bit.
so
$299.
yeah, the whenever Sega announced the Saturn, they said it was $399, and at E3 that year. And then a Sony rep went on stage to announce like PlayStation stuff right after them, and the only thing he start was $299, and the crowd went crazy.
I love it though. It's such a wrestling moment. It's such like, you know.
It is, but that's exactly they decided the Dreamcast needed to be. Like,
Yeah.
you know, that's why, because they were like, no, we can't let that happen again.
Yeah, we
It
can't be embarrassed. Yeah.
Right, but it was the wrong move. It was beyond the wrong. If you price matched them at $299, that would have been fine. I think part of the issue is also the fact that Dreamcast was made while Sega was just about in the red financially. So they couldn't afford to go nuts with the budget on this console either.
Yeah.
Which is just really unfortunate. There's a lot of things that CEO of Sega of America at the time, Bernie Stoller, wanted to put in the console, including a DVD player and a hard drive. That I'll get to later. He wanted to put all that stuff inside of a Dreamcast, which is all stuff that the Xbox did mind.
Yep.
And Sega said, no, we have to choose one thing that we can sell because we don't have the budget for all of it. And he chose the modem.
He chose the what?
He chose the modem.
The modem. Yep.
And I mean, that was a smart call still, because I see the angle he was trying for, and it wasn't a bad call, but also wasn't the best call either. I don't know. Really tough position to be in.
But it's so cool. It was a good thing that they added, ultimately.
Yeah. If they just had more budget, they could have had this. They probably wouldn't have had to worry about having to limit their options on put in it, right? Which, in other words, requires us to go even further back in time and try to fix the 32X and the Saturn. But I don't think that I want to do all that tonight because that would be way too long a span of time to cover.
Long story short, 32X Saturn played a part of the downfall of the Dreamcast, essentially.
And an extremely large part of the downfall of the Dreamcast. I think if I could go back and change one thing, delete the 32. It never fucking happened. Just don't do it.
Yep, delete the 32X.
That could. I think if you went back in time and deleted the 32X alone, Dreamcast probably would have survived. Because like the fact that the 32X and the Saturn were on the market at the same time, I think is one of the main reasons that the Saturn failed.
Yeah, because it had to compete with its own brand.
It had to compete with itself. And they wasted budget and money on developing two consoles when they could have just spent all that money making a better single console.
Exactly.
Anyways, we're not getting into that. We're talking about the now. How do we do it after these things have already happened? How do we save Sega? Because that's the real challenging part, right? How do we save them? Well, as I mentioned before,
how would you save Sega now?
How would I save Sega now? Well, there's this one company that I mentioned earlier and in hindsight of today, it's not exactly a very great thing for them to collab with, but for the time, a fledgling Microsoft.
Yeah.
At a time when they're trying to get inside of the console business, they themselves are getting antsy because Apple is trying to get into the video game business.
Sega is the Sega Apple merger? Is what you're trying to? Okay.
No, that's a whole different thing. No,
because that would be a nightmare for me. But
that would be a nightmare. Yes, it would. I could see a Nintendo Apple merger quicker than a Sega Apple. No, my point was that.
But it would look so good.
It would. Fucking hell, it would.
But no,
it would be absolute moral nightmare. Yes. No, like Microsoft was feeling like really insecure because they saw two things happening in the. One, they saw that Apple was trying to get into consoles. Apple made a short-lived console in the mid-90s called the Apple Pippin. It was extremely unsuccessful and disappeared like a year after it came out.
Yeah, I never heard of it, so.
Yeah. But they also tried to get their PC, try to get their Mac, OS to have, games on it, and one of them was Halo. Bought it out from right under them just to make sure they couldn't have it. So, yeah, there's that. That's how bad their rivalry was.
Yep.
But yeah. So yeah, they were looking at that and also paranoid about Sony because they saw that Sony was trying to make their next console have a DVD player and stuff. And so they were wondering, is Sony trying to gain a monopoly on the entertainment industry as a whole? Because we can't let that happen, says Microsoft, people who are just about to own a monopoly on the entertainment industry.
For video games at the very least at the time.
Yeah. Yes. So Microsoft was wanting to wanted to get into the ring. And that's why the Xbox even started production in the first place. But It really started beforehand whenever they were in talks with Sega, because it was as early as the mid 90s. Sega was talking with Microsoft about Microsoft making the OS for the Sega Saturn, and they didn't do it. I'm guessing because just plans didn't line up. Also because Sega was a nightmare.
Yeah, I don't think Sega was a fun company to deal with back in the day.
Definitely not. But yeah, but enter around 97 or 98 or so.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that had I think that Sega and Microsoft should have worked closer together on this matter. They should have like did something, because I think that Microsoft, as we know from the story of the OG Xbox, is that they spent ludicrous amounts of budget on making that console, like throwing away money to make the console because they cared more about the message of making the Xbox than they cared about the money they were. The original Xbox cost about $600 to produce, and they were selling it for $300. Like that's how much of a loss they were selling their console at. But
They
they
could
did it
also
anyways.
they could have afforded it, and it was
They could have. That's the thing. They could have afforded the losses.
yeah
And so if
they were
worked
thinking in
closer
the
together,
future, and like they were also thinking on like software too. They were trying to sell the
yeah,
software more, and like ultimately smart investment. I mean, you're not going to compete with like Microsoft in terms of like, hey, who's going to make good investments, you know? But like,
and both of them were thinking about, like, both Sega and Microsoft were thinking of trying to fuse the home computer experience with the video game world and trying to expand gaming online. It's like, this is a no-brainer. Like, why didn't they just work together harder, you know? Like, it seemed like Sega approached them for the Windows CE bit and then let them do a little bit of that, but they mostly minded their own business and fucked off. Now, granted, if Microsoft did come into the picture and I was Mr. Lawyer Man and I had to be the mediator between the two, I would try to make sure that any sort of aesthetic or software decisions are still Sega's to make, okay?
yeah,
Because I would not want the Dreamcast in this timeline to turn into what looked like the Xbox. No offense, because I kind of like the Xbox as its own aesthetic in itself, the
yeah,
OG one.
but
But
not for
it
Sega.
ain't not for Sega, and it's not as good as the Dreamcast because nothing is. So, yeah, you know, I think that I had plans on how you could make a middle ground for that one later, but alas, we'll move on a bit. I was just thinking the closer they work with Microsoft, the more Microsoft funnel money into it, and it's no problem for them because they don't care. You know, they'll take their losses or what
Uh,
have you as long as they
I
can do what they want.
I personally think, as a Microsoft person, I think they want to keep everything as in house as possible.
I can see that though, but at the same in the same breath, Sega and Microsoft were really buddy in the 90s. Like Sega released a bunch of games for PC during that time, around the
Oh
time
yeah,
the
yeah,
Saturn
yeah,
was failing, and Microsoft and them rather close. I mean, again, they worked together on the Dreamcast in the first place. It's like
yeah. It's but like until like Sega messed up, and then
true,
Microsoft starts to be like, oh, these guys are kind of like don't know what they're really doing here.
true, but this is one of those things where inside of this equivalent of, like a really dodgy situation, and somebody in the team takes a big risk and they do it and it pays off. It's one of
Yeah,
those kind of
yeah.
stories. That's how I view it in this story, pretty much. Is that like, this is risky because Sega had a bunch of mistakes in the past, and then they do it, and it's a big boom, you
Yeah.
know. And it would have been like, oh my god. Next on the line is what I just defended just like 30 minutes ago, and it was the controller.
Yep.
Um, I like the shape of this controller. I do love the way it holds. It has problems
Yeah.
though,
The
and
the
we
erg
need to face them.
the ergonomics, the ergonom. Okay, so big part of why I got Cody on the show is because we both like controllers a lot. We think about controllers very often,
Yes,
and the Dreamcast
controller
controller,
fanatic.
yeah, and the Dreamcast controller is one of the more ergonomic controllers out there.
See, a lot of people would say otherwise, but I think they're stupid. The Dreamcast controller is very comfortable. A lot of
Okay,
people give it the
the
shit that
the
it's the
people
parallel handle.
the people that give it the shit is because like I feel like a lot of people have not touched a Dreamcast controller.
That's one part of it. I think another part is that people are so used to the norm that the that PlayStation set. right?
Well, I mean, you got to think of the era where like you were looking at Nintendo's N64 controller, and that thing
Right.
was just it does
Thing is,
whatever it wants to do.
I think
Um,
it's I think the N64 controller is also pretty ergonomic. It's just weird, right? That was the whole era, right? They were trying new controller designs that weren't uncomfortable. They sure were weird looking,
yeah,
and that's the whole thing. Like even the original PS1 controller before they added the sticks to it looks wrong.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, yeah.
it looks fucked up. It looks like a SNES controller went
With like these
insane. I
oblong,
don't.
like wings. Yeah,
Yeah, it's terrifying looking thing with giant shoulders on top for no reason. Yeah, monster. Why did they do that? And then they add the sticks and like, oh, fine now. What?
yeah.
Weird. But
It's
no,
it's
like,
also it's
yeah,
also like you have to like think about the PS1 controller into the PS2 controller and just like the efficiency of that controller too.
yeah.
And it's easy to store. You don't have to worry too much about it. It's easy to even like wrap cords around it too. Like
Hmm.
kind of like built into like the nested design for it.
Yeah, the
Uh,
really thin middle like handle thing where the start button's at. Yeah, it's
yeah.
perfect to. Yeah,
Versus the N64 and like that thing's massive, by the way. The N64 controller.
yeah. It's a pretty big controller. Yeah, to do the wires there, you have to literally do a cross motion with it. You
Yeah.
have to like do an X around it. It's pretty funny.
The only comparable controller in size to the N64 controller is the original Xbox controller, and
I I love that thing. I do.
the,
I love the Duke. Okay, it
the
is. Hear me out. This is my Twitter. Hear me out. Everyone, hear me out.
oh the Duke
That thing,
controller. Oh, that thing.
that thing kind of thick. No, 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 no.
I need to
Listen,
find the Penny Arcade comic that makes fun of it. It's
hear me out. It's comfortable. That controller
yeah
comfy. It's big. It's really big. It's comfy. That controller feels good on the hands. And in the same way, I feel about the Saturn 3D analog pad, which inspired the Dreamcast controller.
I'm putting the
And
comic up on screen. They're talking about whatever they're talking about in the comic, but but it's just the massive Xbox controllers that they're playing with. It's just like their whole palms are on top of like the sticks and trying to like handle that thing. I love this comic. It's so stupid. I don't care what they're talking about. It's just like the visual
the visual
humor.
gag is very good, yes. No,
Uh,
yeah, yeah. But yeah, the Saturn 3D analog pad was the inspiration for the Dreamcast, which was the inspiration for the Duke, which was the inspiration for the the controller they replaced the Duke with, which became the 360, and the 360 is the modern controller. That is
yeah,
like every
everything.
controller is based on the 360.
Yep.
And so it's like Sega created that basically from their mold and it morphed into that basically.
Yeah, started
It
with
all
the
comes
Dreamcast.
from it all comes from well, it starts with the Saturn 3D pad, but
Well,
the
yeah, yeah,
Dreamcast is where it really became. And the biggest major components there is of course A, B, X, and Y going in the right ways direction. You know the direction you read it in Nintendo.
yep.
Um, and the analog stick being placed to the upper left side where the thumb naturally rests, instead of down at the bottom where the Dual Shock.
I'm gonna have that debate often of just like what is natural for a controller or not, and I will say this: it depends on the game.
I get that. I
So,
do. I do
so
think that the DualShock controller is better for. I can agree to that because Katamari feels best on it.
well, I mean, like Katamari was built around this whatever Sony had available, so they used what that controller was for.
It actually wasn't. Did you know that? It was in development, supposed to be. They didn't know what console Katamari would be on. It was actually on Game.
GameCube. Yeah,
Yeah, it was going to be on GameCube for a while, and it landed on PS2 exclusive. But anyways, it's a whole.
but that
Whole
said, I
debate.
think sometime within development they like made use of the actual like control scheme that the PS2 had at the
Well,
time, and
yeah.
they pretty much play around the controller essentially.
Both sticks being in the same area towards the bottom meant that it was easy to imitate the movement of the prince's hands
Yeah,
to the ball.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
and
why I say it works better for that than any other console.
well, again, and that's why I'm saying like they made it for that console, like specifically that control scheme.
Hmm.
So like not to give Sony too much credit, but like it plays into like what the
No, I
game
mean
became.
that's valid. It's in the same way as some games on GameCube made specifically for. button scheme,
Yeah.
and it works amazingly.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
maybe that button scheme doesn't best for other games, but it works incredibly for Nintendo games. But yeah, no, yeah, I get it. Anyways, I guess this is the time that we start posting all the controllers. Uh-oh.
Oh, okay. We have a lot to discuss, and I'm going to be putting them up on screen, and I'm going to be sharing it for anybody that's tuning in on YouTube. You're going to see it on screen. For everybody else that's listening to the show live right now, I'm going to do my very best to describe everything.
Yes.
Both Cody and I will do our best to describe like
Okay, so
everything.
tell me when you post a picture.
Yeah, right now we're on the first of your controller setups.
Right. This was my very first draft because at the time I was thinking to Dreamcast can be big, let's try to make it smaller. This was a thing that I immediately went back on, like with the following drawings, like ever since, because I was like, because then I touched a Dreamcast controller again for the first time in a while, and I was like, no, wait, I like this.
Yeah,
it's pretty much my takeaway.
So the controller on the left right here is
the
original Dreamcast controller, and then on the right, what we see on screen right now, is the initial iteration of Cody's brainchild of like what would a modern Dreamcast controller look like. With the VMU and like the placement of the sticks, the D-pad. I think it's like trying to mimic the Xbox controller a bit too much here.
I think like, okay, so I added a right stick. That's the place where we start because I feel like it's maybe the most obvious addition to the Dreamcast controller. That's maybe
for modern games, that's what we're gonna need. Yeah,
I feel like that it should have been on the console. I don't know why they didn't choose. Actually, I know exactly why they right analog stick, and this is going to be a bit of a frustrating story to explain very quick. I'm going to make it very fast.
Okay.
But the designer of the like Dreamcast controller, who also designed the Saturn 3D analog pad, he's the same guy that decided that Hall sensors would be used in the sticks instead of the thing that modern controllers use now, where they get drift. You know?
Yeah.
That guy, genius. Anyways, he was designing the Dreamcast controller to add a right analog stick, and he asked people on the games for the time, and they didn't see it used.
Yeah, because again,
nice dinging of the bell.
Yeah.
I got anyway.
Just to like while you're like quiet right now, trying to like handle the bell, I'm just gonna discuss Sega as a developer, as like software developer, they still were very huge on the arcade schematic of games.
Yes. So, and they were very much simplicity is key with their controls.
So that's why they had the one analog stick for the Dreamcast. That's why they like went with that instead of like competing with Sony.
And that was the wrong call.
And that's why you get weird, clunky movement in some games like Jet Set Radio, or
why Shenmue is terrible to control by modern standards.
Yeah.
You use the D-pad to move, and you use the analog stick to use the camera, and you can't use both at the same time unless you fucking move both your hands. No, bad.
It's a product of the time. That's when tank controls were more of a thing in games.
Still terrible. They like, it's the fact that developers said that they didn't want it, and so he just kind of shrugged and said, "Well, all right then." But I feel like this could have been changed as simply as, I should have just, like, if I was there, I would have whispered in his ear, "No, do it anyways, man. Just do it."
It's not. It's not the wrong choice.
It was like, don't listen to them, man. If you add that right stick, it will improve everything tenfold. I promise you. Do it now.
Yeah.
And
but alas, you were not around at the time, and they could not listen to you. So too bad.
Yes, but that is not the point of this discussion, is it? Because if I was a console, would have made it all the way.
Yeah. So you're gonna be the one that's gonna dictate the pace of when we move next to like the different slides. By the way, we can continue talking about this one. The initial make it smaller, make the buttons I think more spaced apart.
Well, I didn't mean to. It was also a kind of a shoddy, to be honest with you.
Got you.
And that's kind of like, it was my first attempt at doing this sort of thing. I'd done previous controller mock-ups in the past with like Nintendo stuff. It was around the time before the Switch was announced. I was doing NX mock-ups.
Right.
But yeah, didn't do very much before this point. Anyways, the next one is kind of a joke image a little bit. But
with the C and Z buttons.
This is a copy of the Xbox S controller, the second model that they made after the Duke when everybody complained it
Yeah,
was
yeah,
too big.
yeah. With
I literally traced over that with
the yeah.
this. And it was partially a joke, but I was also trying to get on what would a renovated Dreamcast one look like, especially if Microsoft worked with them. Would it just would it have looked like this? I did not stick with this very long because the C and Z there is not comfortable because
Yeah.
it's not comfortable on that Xbox controller. After owning an OG Xbox now and
Yeah, the
playing
black
with
and
that
white
controller,
buttons, I hated those
I
buttons.
do not like where those buttons are placed on that controller. I far prefer the Duke's layout where they're actually just laid out, like above A, B, X, and Y, like a C and Z button properly.
Yeah.
I think
That's
it feels more comfortable up there.
that said they introduced way too many buttons and
It's
eh,
anyways, this controller is kind of a gag. We can move
yeah.
quickly on.
You have the VMU still attached there, and this is gonna be a running theme with every single one of these like controller ports.
Oh,
The
VMU goes
VMU
nowhere.
is oh, we didn't discuss the VMU on the
Oh well,
Dreamcast.
the VMU is like the only thing I could really say towards the VMU is space on it. Um, making the VMU only hold 128 kilobytes and disguising it as 200 blocks was not great because it can hardly hold anything. I know that would have done that to they only did 128 blocks to keep costs low because it's
Yeah.
super multifunctional. The VMU does a lot of things that are
Yep.
just
Yep.
like a memory card.
It was a very nice gimmick, and I really appreciated like that gimmick for the console for the Dreamcast. And oh, shout out to that one guy that made that Kickstarter for like the modern VMU. I really wanted to buy one of those. Oh, but I was.
Oh yeah, I mean you could still do it. I
Oh,
mean it's not a Kickstarter. I'll send it to you later.
oh
It's
yeah.
called the VM2.
No, send it to me
It's
right now
very
so I can shout it out on screen.
Oh shit! Actually, yeah. I forgot that I had it as a tab open on my computer. So here it is.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Let me. Yeah, we're gonna be like. I'm gonna be showing you guys because like again, support indie like
Support indie productions. It's on Indiegogo. It's VM2, the next gen VMU for Dreamcast. It holds the same amount as the original VM, double the resolution, which means you could do a lot more with the VMU's LCD screen. And also, it has a USB-C port to charge it, and it also has a micro SD card slot, so you can put as many saves as
Yep. The VM2 on Indiegogo for anybody interested. You can buy it right now.
It's extremely cool. I've been planning on buying one soon.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Now that I'm like running into like a bit more cash, I'm just gonna like invest in this one.
Yeah. It's a bit costly. It's around $120.
But it's a good thing too.
But if you own a Dreamcast, it's the last VMU you'll ever need. So yeah,
the last VMU you'll ever need. Yep.
Yep.
Highly recommend it. Very sleek, very stylish. If you have a Dreamcast, dope. Sega, please. If anyone's on the if anyone's stumbling on this video or anyone in Sega that's stumbling on this radio show right now, I highly doubt it. But just to future proof it, just please, please, release a Dreamcast Mini and have VMU support with that gun. It's just please.
In the meantime, for anybody who actually has the will, time, just go buy a Dreamcast and go get a GD-VMU. It's one of those SD card loaders you can replace the GD-ROM drive with to load as many games off an SD card as you want for the Dreamcast. I did that. Gens has played on it before. It's dope as hell.
Yep, I love it a lot.
I just wish they didn't have to be so costly because that's quite an investment. That's like $100 for one of those, and it's $100 for the Dreamcast itself.
And then you gotta modify it to
a $90 way more preferable for people who don't want to put in the time or money. But
I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it because playing on the original hardware is just it's what the games were built for. So that's what I recommend. Shout out to also the homebrew community for the Dreamcast too.
Oh hell yes! Big shout outs to Dreamcast Talk.
Yep.
It's a old school forum that just that's been around for ages upon ages. Wonderful place to discuss Dreamcast games, and people still do online lobbies for that. all the time. It's amazing. Dreamcast
I'm
Live,
putting them up on
so
screen right
excited.
now. Go everybody, Dreamcast hyphen talk.
Yep,
It
they're awesome.
is a wonderful community. Lots of great
Mhm.
homebrew games. Again, if you have a modified Dreamcast, we don't support
Mhm.
criminal behavior here, but
Oh no, we do this.
but that's
The
just
homebrew community is what's keeping Dreamcast alive. So
I,
yes,
I'm
do
just
support.
trying to protect Tom Fulp here. Uh,
Yeah, I guess so.
but
I guess we can move to the next image now. Or
yeah, so we're moving on from the Duke right now, the Duke cast,
uh,
into these
we
mock-ups,
have
the
we have
side
these
profile
mock-ups.
views, and everything
These were
right
the
here.
first major ones I did around later 2019, I believe. These are meant to be again a smaller attempt to make a slightly smaller and tighter Dreamcast controller. I introduce a concept, which is that the right analog stick could be something different from a regular right analog. Was the
Kind of like the GameCube almost.
Yeah, the Tournament of the Millennium, we didn't decide that the right stick was truly like figured out as this was the future yet. We were still experimenting. I mean, the N64 had the C buttons instead of what would eventually become, and then
The
the
C
C
stick.
stick,
Yep.
which is sort of a right stick, but also a lot shorter in range and smaller. So obviously, it's supposed to be secondary to the main analog stick. In a similar way, I thought that Sega would do the same for the Dreamcast controller and have so the Saturn 3D analog pad, which I'll send you an image of because you should actually show it as reference for what I'm talking about.
Yep.
The Saturn 3D analog pad, um, it has an analog stick on it, but it's a very strange analog stick. It's almost like a nub like shape, and it's half spherical. It's very strange, but it's
Yeah.
very comfortable. It's very comfortable, but very strange. Um,
Let me
Here,
know when you send it. Yep.
I just sent it.
For anybody wondering what we're talking about, it's like an indented like nub.
Yeah, but it has full analog movement and is very on the thumb. It feels very good.
Yeah. No,
Um,
no, it's not bad at all.
it's
It
really not. It's not a right analog stick as far as range or anything, but that's part of why I think this would have been time appropriate because it would be like they're thinking this is something for camera control and other secondary. It's not
yeah.
necessarily on the same level as having another analog stick.
And
Why would
that's
we
what you
waste
had
more
in
there?
mind when you designed that like secondary nub.
Yes, yes. I
Which
took the idea
I
of the
think
Saturn
that would have
3D
been
one.
cool. Yeah. But
Yeah,
otherwise I really like where you were heading with this controller design right here. I
hmm
especially love how you were thinking about like how you hold it, specifically where the triggers are.
yeah. I
And
wanted to replicate the original controller if I could while like trying to renovate the shape a little bit. I wanted it to be slightly. I was trying to. What I was trying to do in this shot was I was trying to tilt the handles out slightly because a lot of people's main complaint with the Dreamcast controller is that the handles are parallel, and people don't find that comfortable in comparison to the normal standard now where the kind of curve outward.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, um, I think for the most
It
part,
depends on
people
the
are.
hand type, yeah.
It depends on the hand type, first of all, and second of all, I think that people just hold the Dreamcast controller wrong. Sorry, everyone. I think they just hold it way too like tight and grip it super close, and they get uncomfy and wonder why their hands are cramping. And it's like
I
just
feel
loosen up a bit.
no, I
But
feel again I feel that most people have not touched a Dreamcast controller in a long
that
time.
could partially be it too, because I know. Okay, because just as a quick aside, I know that's how people controller as well. And the
You know
N64
that's how
controller is not
what
the best. Huh?
that's how people hold the N64 controllers. What you said?
Yeah, I was gonna say people don't know how to hold an N64 controller. Remember how to hold one either. Is I think a lot of the problem too for that because I think it's a weird controller. I definitely don't think controller again, right?
Yeah.
But I don't think it's extremely uncomfortable. I think people just forget how to hold it. I saw a video one time where somebody was holding an N64 controller and shit you not, they were holding the left and right handles and reaching their to use the analog stick on the middle. And I'm like, what the fuck are you doing?
They need to go
Holy
back to the
shit.
McDonald's kiosks.
Like, holy shit, bro. Is that why people... Because you don't know how to hold it? What are you doing?
I mean, the way how consoles have evolved over time, essentially, we've come to a standard right now, or like a universally like agreed
Right.
upon standard, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what all modern controllers like kind of follow. And people just forget
People...
how things used to be.
Right, so they try to retroactively put their new way onto the old controller and wonder what went wrong.
Yeah.
I just think that's wild. How can you hold the left handle on the N64 and try to reach out to the middle one with your thumb? What's wrong with you? No wonder you think it's uncomfortable. You're breaking your hand.
Yeah,
You
it's on that massive controller too, trying to reach around like that.
What
And
are
like,
you doing? You know, it's like, and it's like I watched this guy try to play Mario 64 like saying, your brain is broken. Somebody please help. Like, somebody please help this man. You can't be serious. I hope they're not serious. The world can't be like this. Not really. Anyways.
yeah, but continuing.
Next one. This one was done as part of sketches. I have this image to show for it.
The Sega
This...
Dreamcast Model 2 controller is what I have on screen right now, and
Right.
it's kind of fusing like the Saturn a bit with I don't know what else.
I'm trying to do a sort of Xbox Ian controller mixed into it. I tried to get more of the outward curve again, and the handles coming out on the yeah. I also see the Saturn 2D pad a little bit in it, and I added one addition to it that's going to keep popping up on and off, which is the classic D-pad from the Genesis and Saturn. I keep adding that back and then taking it off throughout the iterations.
It is a very good D-pad. Is what
It's the best D-pad in existence. So, yeah. I also added C and Z.
It's in my top 2. Is
Yeah,
what I'll
I
say.
know. You consider it with the Vita, right?
Yeah, the Vita is by far my most favorite D-pad. When
Vita is in my top 2 as well.
Yeah, because like I think like when we hung out like proper like in person, I let you like hold my Vita. Like you.
Oh yeah, that D-pad's awesome.
The Vita 2000. I have to preface this
Yeah.
too.
Mm-hmm.
The Vita 1000 had a decent D-pad too, but it was like prone to getting stuck. The Vita 2000, I've been using that for years, and that thing has no sign of wear, no nothing. It's just like very accurate inputs. And the Saturn is also another D-pad that has phenomenally accurate inputs.
The Genesis and Saturn have the same D-pad. It is an amazing D-pad. You are rocking a disc, but every input is accurate. You can feel like the nudges of what exact direction is what. It feels perfect. It is an amazing D-pad. I don't know why they replaced it on the Dreamcast controller. That was my other complaint, but it's not as big because this is also from an era where we're moving away from using the D-pad as much anyways. But
for shame.
But I'm like, if you're going to make a better controller, it might as well have a better. We got to do this for the people out here who are playing fighting game system. Shout out to Gantz.
Yeah.
And also me, because I actually like a lot of fighting games on Dreamcast too.
Fighting games, arcade games, I rely a lot on a good D-pad for them. Even back then, like the PSP Go had a really good D-pad too, at the time, and I would use that as my controller for like when I was playing like classic arcade games on my computer. Right. Or when I was putting like old school games on there too. Yeah, and I felt like, hey, this is comfortable. But yeah, the Sega Dreamcast Model 2 controller is what Cody was talking about right now.
This was made as an attempt to. What if Sega made a second Dreamcast in 2001? Like if they didn't drop out of the console race, but they made a second model and it would have looked like this. And that was what I thought of when I was doing this one.
It has 6 buttons, X, A, B, X, Y. Then I think. What are the other two?
It has a right stick, and then it has the curved more like a standard Xbox controller would be.
It's like a fusion of the Xbox controller and the Sega Saturn.
It looks good. It's just like I've had better attempts. We'll continue.
Yeah. Next up
the next one is the first substantial mock-ups I had done.
This is tough to parse. If you can describe it as best as you can, what are we seeing on screen right now?
Okay, so I had made 2 separate Dreamcast because I had already been doing my own. I had the idea of moving away from the buttons being on there and moving them to shoulders. So the shoulder buttons are Z and C.
Gotcha.
Left one is Z, right one is C. So I built the top one off of some images found online of a guy who legitimately modded a right analog stick onto the Dreamcast controller. And so I just took those and photoshopped them, cleaned them up so they didn't have any of the blemishes anymore, added the shoulder buttons to it, and
Mm-hmm.
then did a few editing jobs on a few other images as well. And that was my first major Photoshop job done for this.
For
And yeah,
for me, I see this and like the thing that I'm thinking about is those sticks are super far apart.
right. We'll get to renovations on that later.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I have more problems with how I fixed it, but I was trying my best to keep the face buttons in exactly the same place while adding the right. Um, my idea when I was drawing this up, I was adding my
You
this
were
controller releases,
you
huh?
were you're adding your what? You broke up a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, I was saying that like while I was drawing these though, I was coming up with my for the timeline here, where
Got you.
it's like the top controller releases and everybody complains about it just like the so they release a second model and it's slow.
Yeah.
This controller is based on the Retro Fighters Dreamcast controller that released a few years ago. It's the same one that I had like when we were living together, you know.
Yep. Yep.
Um, it's more shaped like like a traditional like Xbox modern controller. It's good. It's not. I still prefer the uniqueness of the one on top though.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
designed this because I knew like no matter what people were going to whine about the old Dreamcast controller design. So I tried to make a second one for the timeline where people would whine about it and they got their replacement.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Slightly cleaned up, a little
Yeah.
bit like refined for the fight pad. Yeah.
Right. And now we move
Next.
on to the next
Oh, I
one
love
and
this
it's
thing.
like
So this is an alternate universe thing we're discussing right now.
yes, continuing down the alternate universe path. This thing was made as an example of like, okay, so if Sega didn't, maybe they lasted. Think we can make a competitor to the Game Boy Advance.
Yeah. The
So
the
Sega creates the Sega Daydream.
yeah, the successor to the Neo Geo.
Yeah,
Well,
successor,
kind of.
somewhat successor to the Neo Geo Color, Pocket Color, but also successor to Game Gear.
Game Gear. Yeah,
Um,
okay. I see that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So the Sega Daydream, it was once called the Sega Lucid. Cool names, but Daydream was suggested by Twitter user several years ago, and I thought it
So
was so cool. I stuck with it.
describe what this looks like to people in general.
This is kind of shaped like a Genesis controller.
Yeah, it's
It's
shaped like a
got
Genesis
six,
controller with a screen at the very center
and it's
and
got the kind of like the gray center plate with the start button of the dream. Well, with a home button sort of the Dreamcast of the dream shaped like the Dreamcast start button, and then an actual start button above the CXYZ.
mm-hmm.
It's got shoulder buttons. It's supposed to resemble a combination between a GBA and a controller, essentially,
A GBA and a
um,
what?
and a Genesis controller.
Yep, yep, yep.
And the idea for cartridges was to use miniature,
Mini VMUs, pretty much. Yeah.
yeah, mini VMUs to put inside the back. They don't have screens,
Which
but
I
the
feel like that's
idea
something that they would have done. I mean, like I would love
they
to see this as a not as an alternate universe thing, but like someone to make like a portable like Dreamcast like portable kind of,
mhm,
and like I would love to see something like this. I love that D-pad.
right, yeah, the D-pad is based very much off of like I remember it's similar to the Sega Nomad D-pad. The Sega Nomad was a portable Sega Genesis that was released in the mid '90s. I owned one once. Ah, it's it was nice, but it ate batteries like a motherfucker.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, it ate 6 batteries in 4 hours. Real nice.
yeah, not sustainable.
Not sustainable. Plug that shit into a wall. Um, but yeah, no, I thought of the mini VMU thing because I thought if Sega were to design this way, I had the idea that Sega would make an adapter to make a second half of the VMU thing that you plug into that and put it inside of your controller so you could play them on the screen. You could play them on the Dreamcast as if like their own version of Game Boy Player.
Oh, that would have been
Is
really
what I,
cool. Yeah.
see. That's what I was. That was what was on my mind. Yeah, and I was thinking like Sega would have done this because the whole vibe with the Dreamcast was modular design. So like, just imagine that it would have been sick. Um,
I
next one,
I really
yeah, go on.
I just gotta say I really do love like this look and design. I feel like I would have loved to own this as a kid.
Yeah, me
Uh,
too. I would love a control, like a
next
little
next
handheld
up
that looked like
is
that.
the Dreamcast expansion unit.
So this continues on the mindset of if Microsoft with Sega.
Yeah,
Um,
I
the
I
idea
like the
is
X
that
design right here. Expansion. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. The logo was supposed to be the Dreamcast. Yeah,
spiral with the Xbox X. Yeah, it's very cool. I like it.
yeah. And so the idea was that Microsoft creates an official expansion for the Dreamcast that Sega releases, and it like it adds a hard drive to the system. Now I added a bunch of other features on would have needed, like a high performance. I've deleted that in my later revisions, but like or anything, but like yeah, it adds broadband adapter, which they did release separately, but it adds like a 4 gigabyte hard drive because the Xbox, the OG Xbox has a hard drive with 8 gigabytes in it.
Yep,
I
yep,
feel
yep.
like this would have been extremely useful for making games that are on DLC or
Yeah,
to have like
adding
demos or a
content.
profile,
Yeah, on games. Yep, yep.
having an internet browser, etc., and saving games and saving like videos, music, and stuff on like would have just opened up the entire console, right?
Yeah, turn the Dreamcast from like just a home console into more of like a computing system too, on
Yeah,
top of
yeah.
everything.
Which
And I think
was part of their idea, just
it
worked.
would have been amazing. It again if they
It,
play their cards right. But
oh yeah, and yeah, emphasis on expansion, right? It's a
yeah,
tongue-in-cheek notion to the Xbox.
but
Um,
moving on.
the next one is my next proper revisions to the Dreamcast. Started to sort of simplify the shapes and everything of the design that I posted above, like a couple of pictures back.
Hmm.
It's still the same placement of the face buttons and sticks, but I've lifted the triggers up just a bit so they would match closer to what the Sega Saturn 3D analog pads triggers were placed, which are higher up and a little more shallow, which actually is more comfortable from my experience playing with it. So I did that, and I made the shoulder buttons of Z and C a little more flush into the shape so they don't stick out so much from the top. Um,
Yeah,
it's it's not really that different. Oh yeah, I also added Saturn D to it, of course. Um,
it's
next image. Oh, go on.
yeah. No, I just like how you're thinking about the ergonomics too, of just like how you would set this down and like the back of the VMU case
Mm-hmm.
rests alongside
Oh, right.
the.
I put as you can probably. I'm sorry for interrupting you.
Continue.
As you can probably see, I did a major change to the Dreamcast controller that everybody fix, which was you see the little circle on the farthest right example. I moved the cord to come from the top. You're
Yeah,
welcome. All
because
right.
the cord from the bottom.
It
Oh,
was a stupid idea. I'm not sure why it's like that because the Saturn 3D pad is not like that. It comes
yeah,
out the top. Why did they do this? Anyways, I didn't think it was that big of a deal for the first couple like times within one day as I was playing Dreamcast and couldn't pull the controller back far enough because the bottom of it was
yeah.
in the way. Like I was like, you know what? Never mind. We got this.
We
Um,
yeah. That's like one of the big flaws in the original Dreamcast.
it's like not a problem until it's a problem. And it's a problem.
Yeah.
So we had to fix it.
We moved on to the next image right
This
now.
is this is somewhat of a gag image, but I did it for posterity's sake because somebody brought up the idea of well, if Sega wanted to be quirky and weird, I can see them putting both sticks at the top. I'm
Oh,
like, you know,
I was going back and forth trying to find like what was the difference between like the previous design and this one, and I'm like, oh yeah, this sticks both at the top, and I'm like,
and
eh.
whenever they mentioned that, I was like, they would have, and so I gave it a tip to see what it looked like, and
I think
it
it would have
doesn't look wrong.
I think it would have been good for like
It
Ace
would have been
Combat
amazing
style games.
for Ace Combat for Virtual On. It maybe even would have been good for FPSs, but
Yeah,
also it's like, no,
yeah.
it's like no, bud. The buttons need to be up at the top where your hand is naturally. You know,
Yeah, we're moving on to the
so
next one right now.
the next one is the most renovated version. The previous one I went. This version of the controller was made after I got myself a hold of an OG Xbox and started playing with the Duke controller and liked it so much that I remember that I went back to the controller and thought to myself, maybe 6 buttons would work, and so I put them on there.
Yeah.
And
I personally do like the idea of having 6 buttons on a controller, like
me too.
on the front like that, especially like, aligning it with the D-pad a little bit.
Right. This is one of my favorite designs that I've made. I think this is like one of the this is to me one
Yeah.
of the better ones for sure.
I think the only complaint I have is just like the idea of the circle of the Dreamcast. Like, the controller has the circle that's prominent
Yeah,
on
it has
it.
a circle motif, so the 6 buttons kind of clutters that visual a little bit.
Yeah.
Also, again, the recurring problem that the right stick is a little too low down. It's still usable. I've done a lot of quote unquote testing where I've held the Dreamcast controller and kind of thumb out where that stick would be, and I think that it would be fine, but it is a bit low. Is kind of my issue with
Yeah.
it still, but it also could have been fine. I don't know.
I also like how you're thinking about pushing the controller back a bit more in terms of like where the handles are.
Yeah, trying to thin out the back a little bit because I noticed that the back was kind of really big for no reason. Using the Retro Fighters Dreamcast can thin out the shell that EMU, and it makes me wonder why we even had it so big in the first place. It's not like there's anything in that slot, like in that big chunk of plastic space there. So
Yeah.
I don't know why it's that. I don't know why it's that big. So I
The
decided to shrink it down.
hypermassive VMU back
Right.
is just the one
It's
thing I
big
have a
for no reason.
complaint
Yeah.
here is just the way how the cord comes in.
Yeah, that was also based on the retro thing. It kind of sticks out like that, and that's yeah, it's not the best either. I don't. That was me just experimenting while also making a renovation.
Yeah.
So that's
But
not necessarily
again,
has to be like that.
running theme with the issue of the Dreamcast is just like the cord. And in this day
Yeah.
and age, we have a mock-up on like Dreamcast UI.
Oh yes. Now we're getting to the interesting. We're getting to really interesting bits, huh?
Yeah.
Um, we're now getting into my redesigns of the Dreamcast interface. And even these aren't final because I was thinking about renovating this today. So this was around 2021 later into no wait no 20 this was last year. I did this
Okay.
yeah, so we're getting because yeah, the 6 button design that I did just before was in later 2021, and this was around the beginning to middle of last year.
Yeah. So what
And
we're describing right now is a Dreamcast UI featuring 5 buttons on the screen: the play, file, music, internet, and settings button. And the play button is a Dreamcast
right.
controller versus the file button is a VMU. Music is a musical note. Internet is Sega Network. I think that was
Yeah, Sega Net.
Sega Net.
And the clock is settings. Now everything on this menu was in the actual
Yeah.
Dreamcast menu, except I added the internet option because I had the thought of just an internet browser being built into the machine. You don't have to have a separate disk for it. I've thought that that was an innovation that probably needed to be on the console, but
Yeah.
it probably required like a hard drive to hold the internet like browser itself. Yeah. You know,
It's kind of funny that like of all things, the PSP is the one that did the internet thing the best out of every single console ever.
yeah, the PSP, yeah.
The PSP has solved that issue, and retroactively also the Vita because it does that too.
Mm-hmm.
But not a single console since has done internet ever, which is a shame because they're missing out on a lot of like whatever.
No, yeah, having an internet browser, I thought a really great idea and a big innovator. You know, I thought that was a very big deal.
Yeah, but alas, it was you had to get proprietary software for the Dreamcast to have access to the internet.
Right.
So it made it inaccessible to a lot of people. And like it was also at a time where like the internet was just like budding.
It was in a transitionary phase too. Like we were just moving K modem, so
Uh,
it was like it
Repeat
was a
that
time
again.
when it was an era whenever we were moving from 56K modems to broadband.
Right.
So it was a transitionary phase too. That's why the uh, modem on the back is modular in the first place, because they knew this was coming and knew that they were going to have to make a broadband adapter in a few years to replace it.
But
Um,
alas,
yeah.
it
But
didn't play
yeah,
out.
the next image is a second take on the menu where I
I really love
Dreamcast.
this one.
Yeah, where the controller is the main
Yeah.
and the uh, other four are kind of around it. This is actually based on the OG Xbox's UI.
Yeah.
Actually,
Yep. Yep.
have I shown? Have should I post a picture of that?
Yeah. If you can pull it up right now. So, right now we're looking at another mock-up of the UI for the Dreamcast, following the previous one we just looked at, and I really like the like aesthetics for this one.
Where
It's
everything kind
another
of revolves around the controller. Yes.
yeah, where the control of the play option is the main thing, and it says play Sonic Adventure, and there's like
Right. I wanted
Sonic's
it to
face in the
show.
VMU.
Yeah, I wanted to show the face. I wanted to show like VMU like on the controller itself, and it would like show up on your VMU as too. Um, Alternatively, if you put in a DVD or a CD, it would replace that VMU icon with the logo of the CD-ROM or the DVD video. You know,
Ah, that would have been
it would.
cool, and
Yes, it
and
would
it
have, and it would have shown up on your VMU. Fucking awesome.
yeah
Also, again, it's based on the OG Xbox menu, uh, like a bit,
yeah, which
where
I'm
it's got
pulling
the
up right
big
now.
X
The
with the
the
four
the
columns.
the giant big X, yeah, and like the buttons on the side. Man, what a time the
What a
early
time!
2000s were, right? Where you got like really cool and interesting looking like
Fucking sick UI,
menus.
man. It
Yeah.
looked good. Like, oh man. The very next image is more interesting than it may seem at the um this is the legal screen that pops up after the Dreamcast opening would,
Yeah,
you know, where
the fantasy world of Sega, produced by or under license from Sega Enterprises Ltd. In
in
collaboration
collaboration.
with Microsoft Corporation. Yeah,
Yes, this is the fantasy timeline of. Now let me tell you something about this image.
yeah.
In collaboration with Microsoft Corporation, that is not done with a font. I don't know what the font is. So you know what I had to do? I had to take each of the letters from produced by or under license from Sega Enterprises Limited, and I had to cut and paste all of them to make that like a fucking ransom note.
Okay, that's actually very
And
fascinating. Yeah,
and then for letters that didn't exist, I had to just replicate the font style myself and just try to etch it out
I've done
using
that. I've had to do that. Yeah.
existing letters. Yes, it was a nightmare. That single image took hours to make. That is the dedication I have to this.
Yep.
I did that for no reason other than to fulfill this dream. And then I ended up, a friend told me that you could actually change the legal screen on your Dreamcast to whatever you want. It's like, holy shit, I might just change it to that for fun.
That's
So
hilarious.
so I might do that actually. Don't mind if I do.
All right, next up is
A whole bunch of controller redesign.
yeah, some I feel fail a little bit, but some
Oh
move in the
no,
right direction.
that's why you make them, so you can fail and then keep going,
Yeah, this is
right?
this is what you're doing, Cody. Actually, I need to be real. Is
Mm-hmm.
this is what industrial design people do ad
Yeah,
nauseum.
yeah.
Also architects. We come up with an idea
Mm-hmm.
and we make a bunch of iterations until we figure out which one of these work. And
Mm-hmm.
and essentially what you're doing is you're doing industrial design. You might not
Yeah,
know it or you might not have put like a name on it, but this is exactly what this is.
nice. Well, I'm glad I'm doing okay-ish. Like, okay, so the first one's based on the controllers I posted, a bit more bubbly and rounded in shape. I was testing that kind of look
Yeah.
for the Dreamcast controller. The next one to on the that we're doing these like top four then bottom four, describing what's going on.
Yeah.
The second one on the top is based actually off of a recent N64 controller redesign, I think done by Hyperkin. I wanted to try to make a controller similar to that shape because I kind of like the compact shape, and I realized the N64, when made more compact
Yeah.
in its button layout, wasn't far from the Dreamcast one. So I said, why not? And I gave it that. The third one is kind of based on trying to mix a Saturn
Trying to mix the Saturn controller
and a DualShock.
mhm, with the sticks on the bottom for the Dreamcast controller, and
Right.
I do like this one actually. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
this is where you were heading like towards like a nice idea in terms of button layout and how things are like set up and like the designated zones for the D-pad and the buttons versus trying to
Yeah,
retroactively fit everything like in the
like
OG
some of
like
the other takes.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then the one to the right of that is a little space age with it, but I actually prefer this one to the other one, um, to the third one,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
but they're both pretty good. Um,
On the
bottom
bottom row.
left, on the bottom left side of the row, I think that was another attempt trying to make one like the Xbox S controller, like
Mhm.
like the joke one I made earlier. Um, but then the next one is based a bit more on the Retro Fighters Dreamcast controller. One came out, though it could just be the way I drew it and not really the design itself. I don't know.
Right, right, right.
The third one on the bottom is to 3 and 4 on the top, but it's based more off of a third party controller that was apparently used as the developer kit Xbox controller. Um, and that's how it kind of looked. It looks kind of funky, but also this is 1999, so why not?
Yeah.
The bottom right one is me tracing over the Duke.
It makes me, I was about to say, because it makes me laugh every time.
It's just the Duke, but Dreamcast themed.
It
So
makes me
yeah.
laugh every single time. It's
But
just
the
like
whole time as I was drawing it, I was like, but it looks comfy. It probably it looks stupid, but I'm sure it's comfy.
if you scale it down a little bit, I'm pretty sure it's gonna be like proper.
Yeah.
But it does
So
look comfortable. Yeah, you're right about that.
we're getting towards like the and now we're getting towards the end. The next one is a revision of the Daydream.
I love this thing.
Now I
Ah.
took the Z and C buttons off, but that was for the sake of simplifying because I was wondering if it was too much for a handheld in regards of size.
Yeah.
Um, that was the only reason. I like the way the buttons kind of make a diamond shape, like the kind of thinner diamond shape. I
Yeah.
really ended up being a fan of that. And some other controller designs I started using that look. But yeah, this is simplified. I felt like I got hit with a brain blast when I made the Daydream logo be the swirl with like the stripes around it to come off like the
Like
sun.
the sun, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, holy shit. And then I immediately started drawing this because I thought of the
The
that would be
logo.
perfect for the Daydream.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are a
and
lot
got
of
to it.
influences with the Sega Daydream with the GBA that you put on here.
Hmm.
And I like it. I like it a lot. It reminds me, and the only issues like that I personally have is just like I wish there was like a stick somewhere on here.
I did
Just
have a version of it with a stick at one point, but that I missed in this run talking about it. There's literally double the amount of art that we've done tonight.
yeah, but we're trying
I
to
couldn't.
limit it because like yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That said, I can definitely see this as the basis for like someone's like a small engineering project of like here's how you would do a Dreamcast portable type
Yeah.
thing.
I really like how that looks. I would love to see a like a
Yeah.
proper little handheld.
I
The
feel like
next.
if a handheld for this were to be made, it would be for like Genesis games,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
essentially. But like, I like it. It's very nice. It's very sleek. I like the design. It evokes a bygone era.
Thank
But
you.
yeah, next up,
I really love that bubbly look. And these the last two are like the last two minus the final.
yeah,
The last two are where I've currently landed. Um this is the most
I'm gonna
renovated
hover on the
time.
black one because that's what I like aesthetically.
I like what I ended up with here because I what I did is that I have been playing with the Saturn 3D analog lately.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently modded my Sega Saturn
Right,
and been
right, right.
playing a lot of games on it. And what I came to the conclusion was that in some ways I like the ergonomics a little better on it compared to the Dreamcast controller.
Yeah.
And so what I did is that I took a Saturn 3D analog pad and I traced out its shape, and then I traced out the shape of a Dreamcast controller, found the media, essentially.
The in between of the
Yes.
Saturn and Dreamcast.
So if you can probably see, I finally made the stick in the right stick in the face. I
Yeah.
put them all exactly like aligned to each other, so it
Like an equidistant,
looks
like, you know, there's the left stick and the D-pad, and they match the right stick and the
face
buttons.
yeah.
And to me, this is my favorite controller that you've designed as of yet.
Thank you. Yeah,
I feel like this
think
is the
it's
most
probably my favorite
successful.
too.
I feel like this can definitely be like what can start off with, like, hey, let's make something, like,
Yeah.
how you can start
Now,
engineering something.
as you can see, what goes around comes
What comes
pad.
around it. Yeah.
Yeah, I went back to the 3D pad for the right stick again, just because I went back on the thought and realized, yeah, that does just seem like a thing Sega would.
Yeah.
And I did that. Now you may notice one thing that's different too. If you look at the back of this thing, oh yeah, you can see I put the shoulder buttons back there again. They are flush to where you can't see them from looking at it from the front, but they are.
They are there.
I think that's comfortable enough because the little part where it extrudes out there and then curves into the handle there, that's the same mold as it is on the 3 Saturn. It just doesn't have shoulder buttons, and the giant circle is in the way for it on the 3 pad. So I decided that since it's only a smaller circle on the Dreamcast controller, that gives you the space to do the shoulder buttons properly.
Yeah.
Now the thing that I didn't get to explain in my description of it when I posted it on Twitter a bit is that I only have one slot for the VM.
That's all you need, honestly.
Well, with the limited amount of space on the VMU, it could be a problem, but in a timeline where we have a hard drive in there or some other workaround, then it's not as much of a big. It's just poor. It's just like VMUs in that world would be the same as they were on the OG Xbox with memory cards. It's just for having your saves be portable and taking them to friends' houses and doing stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Or bring your controller over and yeah.
There's only one slot, and the back behind it is shaped in an interesting way. And the reason why that's the case is because, and let me get an example quick. Sorry, give me just a moment.
Yeah.
Is because on the Saturn 3D analog, inexplicably, and I'm posting the image, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
The back port.
Yep.
The back port is detachable.
Is detachable, yep.
Yeah.
And I feel like I
wanted the back port of this controller to also be detachable, because I had in mind a plan where it's essentially the part that would come with the console is the rumble port, and it enables rumble. If you wanted, you could replace it with the memory, where you unplug that and put in the.
Yeah.
But the biggest kicker is that you could take that back part off and add a battery pack, and
you broke up. You take the back part off and add a battery pack?
And you add a battery pack, and now it's a wireless. And now you're cooking with gas.
Yep. The wireless Dreamcast controller that you can just
now that
use.
It would be a monster, dude. That would be it. Like, imagine introducing that console in 1999, right? Like, right out the box. The controller is modular, and you remove the back and you put on a battery pack, and now it's wireless. Can you imagine how many minds that would have blown in 99, dude?
Yeah.
That would have been immense.
It would have changed the game, like, completely.
I mean, like, we were already flipping our shit at, like, third-party controllers doing this bit. We were losing our shit at the Wavebird that GameCube did, you know?
Yep.
Like, that was ahead of the curve compared to the next generation where wireless was just the norm. This would have been huge, because this was built in. This would have been a built-in feature for the controller. Like, you could just use the controller you got with the console and replace the back, and now it's wireless, and holy shit, you know? Like, oh my god. Like, when I had that revelation, I was like, that might be one of the main things that could have sold this. Like,
yeah, just a good controller and good integration and the second stick, so you have more versatility with games too.
And of course, the Saturn D-pad is on.
And
it had, like, this is the one that I think is the most refined so far. It has it all.
Even if I never had a Dreamcast, I probably would have owned this controller anyways because it would have been sick. But yeah,
it would have been fucking amazing. And the last image I have is sort
yeah, this the trackball.
yeah. So I had the thought, like people were like we were just talking about, like Sega would have done a strange alternative to the right stick, and I thought, well, if they wanted users to use the internet, then they would have put a trackball as the right stick, right? Because then
Hey,
you could
play
just surf
play
the internet. You could use it as the mouse to problem.
yeah, play what was the golf game back in the
Oh
day?
my god, yeah, you could play any trackball arcade game, like just an arcade trackball port collection of like 3 games that have ever existed, like a
Yeah.
golf game, Sega Sonic Arcade, where you're having to move Sonic on the track, and then like what else? Is there anything? Another golf game, and there's your collection.
There is one thing that I do want to point out for like the currently the final controller like that you've made. I want
Yeah.
the left stick to be the exact same type of nub as the right stick.
On the wait, on which one?
For your latest the black one. I'm looking at the black one currently.
You want the left and right nubs to be like, you want the right one to be just like, wait.
Cause like my one thing with the Dreamcast controller, I don't like the like bumps on the stick.
No, that's fine. I think that like I would keep like I think that if I ever got the chance to make a mold of this controller ever in my life, I would keep in mind the ability to like either make an alternative version with an analog stick that
Yeah.
has like an indented like stick, or like between
I
having the
do
original
like the
and a
GameCube's like left stick, for example. That's like
oh,
one of
I
my
do too.
that's
It's
one of my
very
favorite
good.
ones.
I remember one of the designs that I drew.
One of the designs that you drew, yeah. Which is
Yeah, one of the designs I drew, I put a GameCube, and I remember I thought once, that ain't bad.
yeah, it's
But
really good. Yeah.
yeah, but no, I get you. I get you. I think again, if I got to make a mold of this controller, I would give it the option to use a better stick or use the original. I would use the original just for my own sake, but I get it.
That said, any engineer listening to this, please try to get in contact with CODY AZOOKARA on Twitter, cause
I've been doing this for years.
AZOOKARA. If you're on YouTube, it's up on screen.
I've
Cause
been
this
doing
thing
it
is
for years.
legendary. I really like this a lot.
That second one is just like I had the desire to just I thought it would look good in black, and I was right.
Yeah, it does. It does look very good in black.
It looks pretty slick.
I want specifically this like color of black with the tone on the inside, like the gradient that you see there. That's what I want to see in person.
I mean, that's just naturally how it would look like in person,
yeah, but I want it like that at all times. Whatever.
No, yeah. I thought that like the black, it's not even a solid black. I don't want a solid black controller.
Yeah.
There is a solid black Dreamcast controller. It doesn't, because it makes all the pieces solid black besides the face buttons, and that isn't nice. I don't like that. I think that the stick, the analog pad, the D-pad, and the plate, all and the start button, all need to be a dark gray so that it sticks out over it, so it can still visually separate it from the rest. It still needs to have that.
Yeah. I feel I feel this is the most successful redesign that you have done. I feel like again this is where like if you were to further iterate on it, you would just make minor adjustments on this.
Like, right. I think this is pretty much it.
Yeah, and then like you would just need to like make a profile, side, top, everything, and like design the click, the detachable mechanic.
Yeah.
And then
which wouldn't be too hard. This is most taking reference from the Saturn 3D pad. Wouldn't take a
so this is it in my opinion. I saw this and I immediately commented on your Twitter, and I was just
yeah, I know you were excited.
I was like, this is it.
If the Dreamcast launched for $299.99 with this controller and a DVD player, I think that would have been it.
Yeah.
I don't think it would have taken that much more work to get people. I know a lot of people can point out like other issues, other things they think they on the console from there. I know that Sega damaged their relationship with EA games because they bought the company Visual Concepts, and EA wanted to make exclusive sports games for the Dreamcast, and Sega was like, well, we already bought Visual Concepts to make sports games for our console, so no. And then EA got mad and decided they weren't going to make any games for Dreamcast. And a lot of people consider that a death knell for the console, but I don't think so, because Visual Concepts went on to make the 2K Sports Series, which is still doing extremely well today.
Yep.
So I don't think that would have been an issue, to be honest with you. And if you may be going like, well, what about games like NBA Street and SSX? Well, I don't know about NBA Street. They could have made their own alternative, but we got Jet Set Radio over here, baby.
Oh,
I think we're good, you know?
I so badly want to play JSRF on Dreamcast.
Oh, man, that's why, that's why whenever I said that we played it with a Dreamcast.
Yeah, we played it. We played
Yeah.
Jet Set Radio Future on a Dreamcast controller.
Yeah, unfortunately, the game doesn't use right stick controls, really. So its camera is still kind of limited. But in its own weird benefit, that meant it could be played with a Dreamcast controller.
Yeah,
So,
and
yeah,
it was really cool.
It was very cool. Yeah.
Man, I just want Jet Set Radio Future to just get something.
And I guess that's where this convo kind of hits its apex. The reason why I went through with all this is because the amount of love and effort that went into the game, into the library for this console.
Yep.
And what Sega was outputting in the 6th gen. They were so passionate about what they made. So passionate. And I feel like you can feel it. It's something beyond anything else of that gen. Even when you played games that didn't even come out on the Dreamcast, like Panzer Dragoon Orta, or Jet Set Radio Future, or Super Monkey Ball, or Billy Hatcher, you can still feel it.
Yep.
Right? The soul is still burning in there.
The developers were still a cutting edge, honestly.
They were still cutting edge, still in love with their craft. The games that they made were still amazing. If a console had every game they made from that gen all on one machine, it would be tied, if not surpassing, the Super Nintendo for how fucking hard it went. Okay? That would be like maybe the greatest first-party library of all time if they were all in one place. Insane output. And the amount of love and passion that went into it. It was thinking. It always was thinking.
Yeah. I still have so much respect for that era of Sega. Late 90s, early Y2K.
Because you could tell the stuff they made wasn't... It was like for the art kid, it was for the hipster in all of us, you know? Like it was that shit that wasn't like...
It was also for the arcade kids too, that's the thing.
It was the perfect blend, and for the techie kids that saw the future, you know? It was like for everyone in that circle, it was just a magic moment. And it can't happen again.
Yeah, it's
my God, man.
It's such a shame, and
and that's why it was the biggest tragedy of, I think, the history of like gaming. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
We lost a monster. Like, that was everything.
The Dreamcast would have been such a phenomenal like thing to carry on into the future and like see what Sega would have done in the console market or the game market.
If that console lasted all the way to the end of the gen around 2005, where they 360 or whatever.
Yeah.
If they lasted all the way to the end of that gen, I promise day would be that was the best console ever. People would be putting that at the top of their best consoles ever list. Like, the PS2 would have still won in sales. Nothing was going to stop it. Okay.
Yeah. The PS2 was
nothing that we do to improve the Dreamcast was ever going to make it beat the PS2. By the way, the PS2 was going to sell 1 million. No, it was going to sell 100 million units no matter what we did. But
it was going to beat at least GameCube.
This was going to beat GameCube.
Yeah.
I could see this in a better timeline. This would have sold like 30 to 40. And you know what? That's fine.
I would have seen Beautiful Joe on the Dreamcast. That's what it would happen.
You would have seen Beautiful Joe on the Dream. God, the timeline.
And
can you imagine it, man?
Yeah.
My God. Just that would have been everything. Just having all those games in one place, man. I just don't know how to say it. The 6th generation of games, I think, was one of the best, if not, to me personally, the best gen of gaming. And it's not just because I'm super nostalgic for it, although that is a big part. but it's largely because I think 3D gaming found its footing.
Yeah.
Because after the 5th gen, the PlayStation, the Saturn, the N64, they are fumbling left and right. Like 3D gaming is trying to find its grasp. And by the gen, the Dreamcast, GameCube, PS2, Xbox launches, they finally got it, and 3D games are popping off. And I think that after that point, starting with the 360 and PS3, games kind of hit a real bad stride. And I think that we're only just now learning to.
We're now just
Like
learning to.
Hmm?
We're now just learning to what exactly?
I think that only in the past like couple of years, gaming, in some ways, just getting past the funk that the 7th gen, the PS3 and the 360 got us. Like, I think that
I wouldn't say it's
something
a funk.
changed.
I wouldn't say there's a funk, but there was definitely trends that were established starting 7th gen.
The
That
7th gen major shift happened.
Yeah.
Expected from games, and I think the amount of games I enjoyed dropped drastically.
It's the push to AAA and the idea
Right.
of like smaller projects being phased out that I
Yeah.
think hurt the game industry in the long run.
Yeah. And
Not to say that like indies don't exist nowadays and there are no small projects nowadays,
it has been a long climb to become a prominent like figurehead in gaming. You know, it took like a decade, but indie is now seen on the same level to a lot of people like as mainstream today, but it took a long time.
and even then, indie is still extreme. Again, it's gonna be niche. It's gonna always be niche. We just don't have the resources, and like the indie games that are able to push past everything are dime a dozen. Not dime a dozen. They're rare, is what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
There are a bunch of amazing games that we just haven't played, and then
Right.
there are games.
I wanted to say you brought a thought to me because you mentioned a single thought. You know, another benefit of Microsoft working with Sega on this would have meant that Microsoft wouldn't have thought to buy a bunch of random companies.
Yeah.
So that would have meant that Rare wouldn't have become.
Rare wouldn't have been dead.
Rare wouldn't have been murdered by being bought by Microsoft because Microsoft wouldn't have felt the need to buy them. Rare could have just stayed a Nintendo thing, right?
Yeah, but you know.
So this benefits other companies too, you know?
If Microsoft just worked with Sega, we would have been safe. Oh, whatever. But like
we would have, but you know, the timeline we're in now, Sega has long been. Oh, look at it's dinging.
It's dinging. It's 10 bong on your end.
It's 10 bong on my end, but no, I think that it's just kind of a rough state we're in now because the moment Sega fell out of the business, their company like went through severe restructuring, reorganization.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
the 7th gen.
I mean that era
fell apart.
That era was also really bad for Capcom, all things considered too.
The 7th gen.
Yeah. It was the dark times for Capcom. It was
the dark times for Capcom, but I
darker times for Sega. Well, no, I wouldn't say darker time for Sega.
I think both of them were going through some real shit. Okay.
Okay,
7th
but
gen was just a bad time.
I say worse for Capcom, personally, because Sega was still releasing really fun games, or at least publishing very fun games that I really liked.
Okay, so there's one thing I will give Capcom I will say Capcom probably had it worse by then, and I can only say the only reason why I say that, my only definitive reason why I'd say Capcom had it worse.
Keiji Inafune. That's what I say.
Well, one, yeah, Keiji Inafune, and two, Sega was releasing the Yakuza games.
Yeah,
so
and
they had one series that was anything.
No, there was Valkyrie Valkyria Chronicles that I really enjoyed at the time, and Sonic was still.
Sonic was dying, bro.
Okay.
He was. Oh my god. You want to get to the heart of why I want this different? You want to know why? Because I have to save my buddy. Because Sonic went through hell, man. The moment that Sega left the console business, Sonic died and went to hell, man.
Hey, we got generations.
He never recovered. The same.
We got generations. It's not the same.
We got generations, but it's not that. Look, Generations is the best 7 out of 10 I've ever played.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I like it. but it ain't nothing compared to what came before it.
All right.
I mean, it's better than some things that came before it, for
Yeah.
sure. But that's
Hey,
the
we
best we've
got
had.
Shadow the Hedgehog, and I unironically enjoyed that game. It makes me laugh.
It's hot fucking garbage, but it makes me laugh. So
Oh,
there you have it.
but it has moments that I really enjoy. All right. That's me being contrarian right now. All right. I know that game's bad. Don't worry. But
remember when we tried playing Heroes again, and it was like, and I added all these mods to it to try to make it a better, and we still quit like 3-4 seconds. We were like,
yeah, Heroes like Rail Canyon was just not it.
Rail Canyon, the real ass breaker. I remember we got to Mystic Mansion's boss, where it's just the enemy rush.
Oh yeah,
that was the moment where we said we're not playing. We had a good. We played Sonic Hero. Yay!
Yeah.
This game is garbage. Even when we add like all these mods to improve it, there's nothing you can do to really salvage it. Oh man, it's so sad.
Well, at least the very beginning of the game is fun.
The very beginning's fairly fun, but again, we played with mods and the character, so they weren't sliding around on soap like they are in the actual game.
Yeah, that's...
So you have to keep that in mind. We probably wouldn't have got even as far.
I know we're gonna need a very special dedicated episode to just Sonic. I know that.
God.
But
Sonic is such a troubled soul.
Yeah, we were originally gonna talk about Frontiers today, but
we were originally gonna talk about Frontiers
but
we're gonna
hold off on that. Yeah.
We have to, because if you got me started, I wouldn't stop, and this would be an extra 2 hours long. Because
yeah, that's
And then you and I would all millions of followers in 5 minutes, and like, because we'd be like, how dare you distract Frontiers, right? But
Frontiers, I will say, this has things that I enjoy, but it has myriad
things I enjoy. But you know what? Many.
But yeah, it's that game. It's
Sonic Heroes is a banger ass soundtrack.
Yeah.
Does that improve the game?
Yeah. What goes up must come down, I say. But
yeah, awesome, good.
But yeah, let's move on to the listener questions.
Oh my god.
So yeah, we have those. We didn't have them last time we went live.
That's right. All right.
But now we have listener questions. Pastel Fire at Frailbulb on Twitter asks, "How's y'all's day going?" Okay, she has multiple questions she wants to ask. So let's start with that one. How's your day going so far, Cody?
Pretty good. Good.
Were you enjoying prepping for tonight's show?
Yeah, I'd say I had a good time prepping. In the case, I mean, like, I just sent a bunch of images of Dreamcast controllers, and then I
organizing your thoughts, and
organizing my thoughts, but mostly watching a friend.
Yeah.
Yes, but it was nice.
Let's see. What is Azoo's fave food and least favorite food? So
that's
if you
hard because food is a good subject.
Yeah, but you have to
food is just kind of good.
Yeah. But if you had to pick, okay, right now, what's something that you would love to eat?
Right now? Oh man. Well, let's see.
That you cannot say no to.
That I could not say no to.
If you were hungry.
I would pretty much always guaranteed eat a giant thing of fried rice, so that might be.
Oh, fried rice is good, yeah.
That might be the pick.
And
put some steak and mushrooms on there. Oh,
yeah.
Actually, that might be it.
Oh yeah, like how we used to be eating way back. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
And least favorite food.
Least favorite food. Oh, let's see. I don't have a lot of like ones that I don't like a whole lot. Gummy food, gummy candy.
Gummy food, yeah. I know you hate Jello.
I don't like Jello for the same reason. I don't like it squishing between my teeth, dude. I don't like that feeling.
Yeah, the texture.
That's disgusting. I can't stand that.
All right, it's a good thing that I do remember, like, because like you were saying I don't know what, and I'm like, I do know what your least favorite stuff is.
Yeah.
And next up is, what Dreamcast franchise do you think deserves a remake? Oh boy.
Jet Set Radio.
Yep. That's where you and I agree, because we're just like, damn. I wouldn't say
Now,
it deserves a remake. I just think it deserves, like, please just let me play Future on a modern console, and everyone will fall
I
in love with it. But we're getting Bomb Rush
I
Cyberpunk, so
we're getting Bomb Rush Cyberpunk, thank God. But also, the world needs to know JSRF is made Bomb Rush what it is.
yeah, it's
The
JSRF
world needs to know.
is one of my near perfect games. I do.
It's one of the few tens in existence.
Yeah, I dearly love
It's
that
fucking
game.
amazing.
It,
That
like,
playing that game all the way through with you for that first run, nothing was quite like that playthrough. That was awesome.
yeah, that was an incredibly fun run. I love playing through that game. It was,
Yeah, just
man, I just need people to play that game, because people love Jet Set Radio on the aesthetic part of it, and then the only game that people can play is the original JSR, which is
the
not a
first
bad game.
JSR
I love that
is
game.
fun, but it's
Uh,
clunky.
it's very clunky, and like a lot of people get turned off on it, and people just mostly go on JSR for the aesthetic, like,
Right.
aspect of it. It's a fun game too. Don't get me wrong.
It's fun. It's fun, but it's clunky and slow in a way that like an old game. You know, it's got old game vibes.
Yeah, but still very good. Just like, a lot of people
Yeah.
will not give it like the finality or the time of day. They'll just like pick it up for a little bit, be like, oh cool, this is what was the game at the time. It looks really cool. I love the music, and like, Dragula as a song on there.
Right, but people need to understand that Future improves basically everything about the first one in such a substantial way. It's not only a great sequel, it's a fucking amazing game.
Yeah, it is. JSRF Jet Set Radio Future is a phenomenal game. It's
Controls are awesome. The way you jump, the way you move, it feels so heavily in the first game, and like
yeah.
the level design is so complex and thoughtful and so entertaining to play, and just oh
There
my god,
there is
everything is just fantastic.
there is never a dull moment in JSRF. There is never a moment where I'm like, oh, I'm just frustrated. There's always something to do in the game too. So
Right, even at the points where we were frustrated, felt enough power in you to keep going.
yeah,
You know, like I remember our emulator crashed a few times, so we had to start. Still felt the want to do it because it
yeah.
was just that good. You know.
Or grinding points out in the map, just trying to figure out
Oh
like how
man,
can we style as much as
the
possible.
the only thing I wish that was better about JSR is that I wish the trick system was a little more clear as to what you do and how you do it. But when you learn how to do it, it's awesome.
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel if we had a manual with us and we read through that manual, we would have figured out like how the trick system worked, pretty
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we were, I mean, like, we're not dumbasses. We were like, we figured it out. We were like, okay, hey, if we push these buttons in this type of sequence,
We
we can
learned
figure
it
out the
with
game.
certain rails that give you points than others.
Yeah,
And it was because of the aesthetic factor. They took into account that it would be cooler to go off of this rail, and so it gives you points than the other one. It's like,
yeah.
holy shit. I
And
love
and
this
then
game.
we like optimize how we go through our point routes based off of that.
Yeah. Oh my
And
god,
like
it was
it gives
so
you a lot of
fun.
like micro challenges to figure out like the actual game mechanics. Remember like that in the sewer level, going up that like giant spire, the giant tower like area
Yes.
where we need to just wall jump off the walls going all the way up, and it's just like,
Okay,
oh.
I have one flaw with this game that to a can you not play the scrappy that much? Can you play it a little less? I like it. Don't play it like as much as you did in the sewer, please. Like you played it a lot in the sewer, Sega. You could tone it down a little bit.
Yeah. Oh man.
Great, amazing game though. The
But yeah.
world needs to know.
But yeah,
It's so sad.
as far as Dreamcast franchises that we think deserve a remake, Jet Set Radio is definitely.
I think it deserves a comeback. I think that's a really hard thing for me to like truly say when I sit down with it though,
Hmm.
because like I think all of these deserve another shot.
Yeah. When you
Like
think about it, JSRF is a remake of JSR.
I
It
need the
follows
world
the
to play
same beats.
JSRF.
Yeah.
I need the world to like the world has an easier time playing Panzer Dragoon Orta, but the world needs to play that one too. Incredible, amazing. I think that a proper like new slash reboot of Space Channel 5 is a really good thing they could be doing right now.
Yeah. I
I
agree.
think that would be great. Um,
We don't
I
need more
really, really,
Shenmue.
I
We
look.
don't need more Shenmue.
Hey, look. I just feel like Shenmue 3 should have been better than it was. Like
I
it
feel
felt
if
like the
I feel like if people actually played Shenmue 2, they would not have wanted a Shenmue 3. Is what I'm gonna say there. That's gonna be like a hard line thing is gonna turn people off on it. It's just like y'all need to actually play these games.
yeah, that's the thing. A lot of people didn't. You know,
Yeah, and
did you,
there's
Gint? Did you hear? I'm
yeah.
sorry I had to interrupt you. Did you
Continue.
hear that Sega is planning on reviving Cosmic Smash?
What?
Yeah. I completely
Wait.
forgot to bring this up to you. How did I?
Huh? Cosmic Smash is a okay for anyone that doesn't know. I need to like pull up a video right now just so people can see. Cosmic Smash is this like ridiculous
Crazy
like
ass Y2K tennis game,
yeah.
futuristic space, weird shit game.
I'm gonna be pulling
Just
it up on screen right now. It's just like racquetball with
it's racquetball slash Arkanoid slash
yeah.
Y2K space, just alien aesthetic. It is
Shout out to video
so
game
bizarre.
Esoterica right now because I'm pulling up their video on screen and like people could see it. It's just like this game is wild. It's like one of my favorite like arcade style games. I remember like you can just see it on like the screen right now. There's a lot of like complexity that comes into like developing and like throwing the ball, everything that goes on it, and like the looks of the game is just it's so of the era,
Yeah,
the scoreboard and everything, and I can see a lot of influence from like
this is a peak
like
Dreamcast aesthetic game, man.
Suda 51 definitely took a lot of like inspiration from like this type of stuff.
Look, here's the post.
Yeah, let me pull it up right now. Hold up, let me find it. Yeah, I can't believe this is actually happening.
When I got that
Of,
news,
of all games,
I know, and you know what? It's looking like it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be a VR game.
Well, that makes sense.
And I couldn't think of a better thing it could be.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for a VR game. Like
because I couldn't think of
Cosmic Smash.
I couldn't think of what you could possibly make a new Cosmic Smash, and that just answers it right there.
Yeah, well, you know what? That's cool. I'm really glad that those guys can like I don't know if it's the same developers making the next Cosmic Smash game, but I was like, what the hell? I didn't expect to hear Cosmic Smash today.
Huge,
is what I'm trying to say. I'm
it's
like
huge, isn't it?
I'm like
the web. Oh, I need to send you a link to the website, dude. I think it's the same people, by the way, because the music is still by Ken Ishii.
Okay.
And yeah, because the website has music by Ken Ishii.
Sega, what are you doing?
I don't know what they're doing.
Sega, what are you doing? Because they're getting me hyped for no reason. I'm getting hyped for no reason. I mean,
right,
I love Cosmic Smash.
Right, because
but I don't have a VR headset.
Yeah, you're like just the fact that it's kind of like it's just kind of like thank you.
I'm like
I can't believe I'm being fed for no reason.
I'm like no, but like where my brain is going is just like what's next. Like that's where I'm at right now. I'm just like okay.
It's like what's next? Yeah.
Cosmic Smash. The Dreamcast has a bunch of really fun and cool like games like Cosmic Smash.
That's the thing. Like Dreamcast was jam packed with games like this, and just oh my god, the variety was insane. Did you? Are
we getting a Dreamcast Mini with like games like Cosmic Smash? I will fucking. This is what I'm saying.
You tear it up.
Like if I ever worked at the social media like side for like Sega, I will literally sabotage the company and like announce like a fake announcement for the Dreamcast Mini.
Yeah.
Or the Dreamcast 2, and it will play like Sega's hand is forced at that point because everybody is going to be talking about it. And what are they going to do? Are they going to disappoint everybody and be like, no, that was just an intern that was just lying?
Well, yeah.
I would get sued out the ass. I would get like
because everything else would be like people have posted Dreamcast 2 hoaxes forever. That's one.
Yeah,
if Sega themselves tweeted it out, if an intern posted it on Sega, it's like, oh, you don't have a choice now. Now you got to do it.
No, okay. Here's what I would do to not get myself sued into oblivion by Sega and like blipped off the face of the earth. Is I would make a poll. Would you guys want a Dreamcast 2 or a Dreamcast Mini? And like see which wins.
The hornet's nest. Of course, the answer is gonna be like 99. Yeah. Well, duh. Of course.
Yeah, but at the very least, it shows interest. And I'm like, if you're the guy that's working right now in Sega, as internet or whatever, as the social media manager, take the fall. Everyone will love you. You can then post like a GoFundMe after they fire you, and they put like a whole like a squadron of hitmen against you. You can like
You're
just
out here to die a martyr. Is what
yeah.
your plan
No,
is.
but just get fired. Put up a GoFundMe that you were the guy that like forced Sega's hands. Everyone will like love you and support you because you're the guy that like forced Sega's hand essentially, and and you will have saved Sega. Again, I'm gonna actually clip this. And I'm gonna be posting this online too, just so people can like so the social media guy can hear it,
Mhm.
and then
Just-
like you lose your job, dude. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying lose your job.
Lose your job, man. Do it for the bit. Do it for Dreamcast.
Not for the Brit. Just do it for like the so I can get
Do
my
it for the better
Dreamcast.
good. Yeah, do it for the better good of humanity.
I don't care about humanity. I just want the Dreamcast too.
No, it'd be a benefit for humanity as a whole. For
Yeah.
storage. Yeah.
No, dude. Do you know how much that would like blow the internet up?
Because it's like we have three companies like Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo who are to like basically capitalist hell. Like even Nintendo's rotting at this point a little bit. Like their business practices have gone only worse and worse since Iwata passed. Right?
Yeah.
We bring back the Dreamcast for the people. We do it for the people.
it
This is
it would legit break the internet. You don't
Oh.
understand.
Sega announcing a Dreamcast 2 would destroy the internet, bro. It would
Yeah,
just-
yeah. And, like even better if it's not like actually happening, because if it's not happening, everyone will yell at them that they want it to happen, and
yeah, and then they'd feel like forced to do something.
investors will be like, holy shit. But the thing is, like, Japanese developers, or I don't know how Sega America is handling it, they like everyone's playing it safe, and that's what I don't like. Sega intern, be the sacrifice.
All I have to do is I have to go up to Sega Japan's door. Hey guys, just want to let you know, if you announce the Dreamcast 2, your stock percent.
Yeah,
announce it the next day.
they will triple profits. They will triple profits overnight, quadruple.
Quadruple.
Yeah.
Quintuple overnight. No joke.
Yeah.
It would happen.
Sega stock would go out the way. Like, hey, let me just put some money into Sega stock right now.
The greatest
just like,
highs they've had as a company in like well over 15 years.
no, but people will lose their goddamn minds over this. And like, this is why I have a radio show, so I can like post ideas or like talk about ideas like this, and then like it's gonna get into public knowledge, and then like again, I am going to clip that. I'm gonna clip this whole bit. I'm gonna post it as a separate video too. I don't edit any of these, but this is gonna be the only time I'm gonna do it because I love the Dreamcast that much. and I want chaos. But yeah.
Yeah. For chaos route here.
There's
we should
that.
probably answer more questions.
Yeah. Okay. Oh well, this one is perfect for you by Frail Bulb. Thoughts on the Knights games?
Oh, ooh. So I went over this very briefly, but Nights into
Dreams, yeah.
time. Yeah, Nights into Dreams, one of my favorite games of all time. Maybe I consider one of the best of all time. It's like in my top 3, and it's not 3.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I
really
adore it.
I love the game too. Nights into Dreams is like a really great game.
I think it is pure magic. I think that it is one of the biggest triumphs in all of gaming.
Yeah.
And I
even in Sonic Adventure, it getting a huge shout out in the casino level.
It's gotten continuous shout outs from Sonic Team.
Yeah. It it especially deserves it. It's like one of the better arcade style flight simulator games.
Yeah, and it's Sonic Team considers it one of their proudest. Sega as a whole considers it one of their proudest achievements. They should. It is.
Yeah, it's a great game. Not enough people have played it. Not enough people have known about it. And then Ball in Wonderland happened.
Look,
and then
we just kind of forget about all that. Okay?
That's a separate topic.
These are different timelines, okay?
Yeah.
This is a timeline where we have
no criminals.
Punish Naka.
Punish Naka.
Naka is the timeline that we have, okay? we have this is a war-torn Naka that has seen everything fall, and he has lost all morality. Okay,
He is taking the punishment.
he has watched his empire fall into dirt, and so this is what has become of him.
Ah, man, I love that.
And it honestly, it's a tragedy on the level that I wish there was a series like Defunct Land that goes into detail about fall. I wish it existed. That would be amazing. On the same tier as like Defunct Land series about Walt Disney and the making of Epcot and how Walt Disney went mad with power. Like I want that
for Yuji Naka, yeah.
For Yuji Naka, oh my god, to make him the centerpiece of this story. Oh, yes.
That's a separate radio show.
Oh my god, that would be the most amazing story because it's about a man who like helped create, didn't even just like Walt Disney, didn't even create, but helped create one of the most iconic characters of all time.
Yeah.
And then took all the credit and then went mad with power, and then his empire goes through extreme struggles. And
it's just like Keiji Inafune.
So Inafune is a different beast, though. He went on a whole different direction of stupidity.
I feel like they went in a very similar direction of stupidity.
Both of them are fallen icons that went from.
Oh, I would never say no. Yuji Naka, I will say he is a fallen icon. Keiji Inafune,
I would say
calling him an icon is like too much of a good thing. I feel
what I'm trying to say is that both of them were once perceived as icons, and I think at the end of the day, with hacks,
yeah,
kind of you come to.
They both wound up being frauds, and then like everyone.
They both wound up being frauds, and that's such a terrible. The things that they are credited for creating are some of the best things to happen to video games.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
It's a terrible shame. Yes.
And then they both kind of destroyed their own franchises. So.
But no, to get back to the question, Nights into Dreams.
Nights into Dreams
ever made.
Yep.
Question: the sequel for the Wii is not great. It has problems. I'm not a big fan. The storyline and the way the character first aspect of the game. I don't dislike the gameplay that much, but I think it still has its issues. It is not a great sequel, but if you asked me, do I want a new Knights game? The answer is when.
Yeah,
is my question. It's like, give me another
one. Re-release, like whatever.
You could just re-release Knights into Dreams. Be fine.
Just put it in like a Dreamcast Mini.
Whenever honestly, yeah, because it's like they made a remastered PS2 and then released it on Steam, PS3, and 360. You know, and you could just put that in the Dreamcast Mini as a bonus.
Yeah,
if you felt like it. Oh, you know what? If you made a Dreamcast Mini, put JSRF on there too, and put Panzer Dragoon Orta. And, you know, for posterity's sake, put Space Channel 5 Part 2 and Shenmue 2, and put Monkey Ball, and put Billy Hatcher, put all of them on there. Put all of them on there. Give me the best console ever made. Do it now.
See, this is where we go back to like.
We're going back to crazy mode.
Going back to Sega intern right now. Just destroy your entire career in video games and
give me the best console, the best mini console.
And if you release a GoFundMe, I will help you out. I will. Your sacrifice is going to be well worth it. You'll be a millionaire overnight too. Don't worry about it.
God, it's just, oh man. But yeah, a Knights re-release right now would be fantastic.
Yeah, and the next question, we already answered this one, is opinion on the current state of Sega, and I'm just like,
to give a full opinion, which I'm truly do, but to give a sum up of now, I think that they are honestly just getting by, resting on the tools. They bought Atlas, so they don't have to really try anymore. Atlas can just make a new SMT or a Persona game, and they're good.
I would say that, but then I've heard very bad things about SMT5, and I'm just like, oh, that makes me sad. But
I mean, I guess the truer statement is they can make a
new Persona.
Yeah, they can just they could just rely on them making.
Or remake Persona 3, or like, you know, whatever.
Yeah, like that's the thing. They're resting on their laurels now. They know that they can churn out Yakuza games. They know that they can just get Atlas getting on the
That
Persona
said, I
thing.
need to say Yakuza games are very good.
They're good. It's just I think that like I think that the honest truth is that regardless, if you make a game, if you make enough iterations, will.
I mean, have you played Yakuza 7?
I haven't.
It's an RPG.
Okay.
It's so unlike anything else that the Yakuza series has done. Yakuza is like one of those franchises that like they will be able to do whatever they want. There was a zombie Yakuza game.
That's good.
No, it's a ridiculous franchise, and it's like it has infinite potential. Is what it is, and I love it for it.
I just think that they need more. You know, like
Oh, they
They
need
can't just sit on Sonic, Yakuza,
yeah.
Persona forever. They're gonna have to try more. You know, like this isn't going to last doing the same three a million at a
Well,
time.
you're arguing with them, and then seeing that like Persona fans will literally buy whatever.
Yeah, and so will Sonic fans.
So it's just, and not to say that Persona 5 or
So I
Royale
guess they
is any
so
worse
I
or anything.
guess they could do this forever, but it wouldn't be respectable.
They don't care.
I know they don't care,
The
and that's really
Persona
my
and Sonic
issue.
fans don't care either. So like this is a losing
No, they
argument.
don't. And yeah, see that's the they're that's why I call it an okay position. I don't consider it a bad position because I'd say they're financially secure with what they're doing, but I don't like it.
Yeah. I
I think
want
it's bad.
a Dreamcast Mini. I want again Sega intern listening on this thing. I'm clipping this, and I'm going to at Sega of America, and I'm going to like put it on. Just sacrifice your job. Say, put up a poll. Do you guys want a Dreamcast 2 or Dreamcast Mini? Either scenario is just like everyone's gonna say Dreamcast 2. But like, even if Sega's like, oh no, we don't have the funds for that, but then they can scratch their chins and be like, maybe the mini though, and
Right.
I'll buy that, and then just put
Yeah, you'll buy
JSRF.
that at least.
Yeah, I'll I'll devote. I don't have space at home. I'll still buy it. I love that thing that much. Anyways,
I just
next.
think they shouldn't rest on their laurels. They need to use some of their
Yeah, Sega needs to do more, and like I like what they're doing with, of all things,
Cosmic Smash. That's
Cosmic
insane.
Smash. Of like,
And to
oh
announce that they have like I don't trust these films being any good, but the put films in production for Comic Zone, Space Channel 5, Streets of Rage. That's impressive. I didn't know they had it in them to actually look at their old IPs and say we have something we can use. You know,
yeah. I mean,
because they
Streets
don't
of Rage
do that.
4, Streets of Rage 4 was really good. Beat 'em ups.
See, but Streets of Rage 4 was not even supported by Sega. Sega didn't even acknowledge its existence.
Yeah,
It was outsourced to a different company, much
yeah,
like
yeah,
Sonic Mania was. The only reason why Sega knows that because how can they not? It's Sonic, but like it's like third party like handouts. It's like
yeah,
the Panzer Dragoon remake, which that's dog shit. They
yeah.
just handed it to a random company because they didn't actually care to do it themselves. It's
All
just
right, all right.
pathetic.
Next question is from Hero Darth at Hero Darth on Twitter. Shout out to Hero Darth. They're also on Newgrounds.
Okay, okay.
They ask, currently listening to it live. Don't know if you'll see this, but I was wondering, and we're seeing it right now. Don't worry. But I was
Mm-hmm.
wondering if you would ever design a game in your life, and what's your favorite comedy anime if you have one. All right, this is a two-parter.
Okay.
If I would ever design a game, oh man, I have design docs upon design docs, dude.
Me too.
That I'm working on. But like currently, right now, let me just like, for me personally, let me just move on to like the next game that I would want to do currently, or like my first big game project.
Yeah.
That I'm writing up a design doc for is I want to make an RPG that yeah, stereotypical like indie RPG about depression or whatever, but like essentially it's a mix of SMT and Pokemon, where you make bonds with the monsters on the world and then you have to sacrifice them, and it has like Mario RPG, not Mario RPG, specifically Paper Mario mechanics of HP. Like you have 10 HP maximum between you and your like party members that you recruit, and you have to manage like fights like puzzles. And the monsters that you recruit have to like interact with each other in unique ways. That's the very basic like rundown of it. The actual narrative and story of the world is something that's so like interesting that I've been working on for the longest time, and I want to make a demo for that and finish it by the end of this year actually. and then maybe kickstart that. Who knows?
Yeah, I remember you going through those concepts and stuff.
Yeah, that
They were
RPG
pretty
that I
dope.
was like showing you at the time. Yeah,
Yeah, it was dope.
and I've been really working on that as like a side story on top of Boxcar and everything.
Hmm.
And I'm really proud where I'm leaning towards it. And like as a game, like I think thematically it could be very good and very useful for people. But that's it. That's it for me. That's like I have other games I've beat 'em ups that I want to do, but like that's in the future. First things
Yeah,
first. This thing. But what about you, Cody slash Azoo?
I have an old RPG concept,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, and
I
I've
remember
held on
this
to
one.
that for a, yeah, I've held
The
on to it for a long time.
Do
And
both of our RPGs involve moons? Now that I'm thinking about it.
oh yeah,
No, no, no,
yeah.
no. You're.
No wait, what do you mean?
No, I'm
Are
thinking
you thinking
about
of?
like your Majora's Mask concept thing. Is what
Oh,
I'm
that
thinking
was
of.
something different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's yeah.
yeah. Fan game stuff. That's a whole different kettle.
Yeah, no, no, no. We're not
Talk
talking
about
about fan
plot of
games.
it.
We're talking about our original. And yeah, your RPG. I remember seeing
Yeah,
the sprites you've been making for it,
yeah.
and
I keep
the
that a secret though.
settings.
What
Yeah,
that whole thing.
yeah. I'm not gonna get into it too much, but like it's a very interesting RPG.
I've made multiple platformer con.
Oh yeah,
One was called Rad,
I remember your
and
Ristar like redesigns too.
yep, that was more fan game stuff. Though
Yeah.
really, though I did want someday. I never had to pitch it. See.
All right, all right, all right. How about like let
Um.
me add on to this question.
Mhm.
What's your dream game to work on? Like if you were given the reins to like any franchise
If I was given the reins to any franchise,
that you would make a game for, no limit. I'm saying no limit.
oh, did I not? Did you not hear me?
Well,
Oh, Rayman.
Rayman. Okay,
Yeah, give me that game. Let me just buy it off of Ubisoft because they're not using it.
they're
So
going bankrupt soon, so
they're going bankrupt soon. So I'll just buy the rights to Rayman right off of them.
let
I
me give
mean,
you
it's
guys
not
like a nickel.
like who's gonna complain about me buying it? Michel Ancel, he doesn't work. He got fired for harassment reasons.
Yeah.
That's right. You too, Ancel. You and Keiji Inafune and Naka can go live. Fuck off.
But yeah,
Anyways, give me Rayman.
and
I'll do crazy things with Rayman. I'll do crazy things. That guy got no limbs.
for me, it's always going to be Beautiful Joe, and
Of course.
if not that, then Jet Set Radio. But
Yeah. Okay. So you give me a list, and probably Rayman. First, I would give it also to Knights and Jet Set Radio.
yeah,
And Ristar, and I mean, do I even have to tell you Sonic would be on the list?
yeah. No, you're
But I
all
mean,
good.
like Sonic is so fruitless at this. I
Yeah.
almost give up on my son.
All right, all right.
But
Then
it's-
let's go. Let's go on the next part of that question. What's your favorite comedy anime, if you have one?
Favorite comedy anime? Oh boy.
I have two off the bat for myself.
Go on.
For me, it's Cromartie High and Golden Boy.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, you reminded me. That might have.
Which one? Cromartie
Gold-
High?
Yeah, Cromartie High. Yeah.
Cromartie High is phenomenal.
It's extremely funny, but so is. I got a couple of shout outs to other. Of course, I always love me a good Pop Team Epic.
Oh, Pop Team Epic is also good. It's like I've told people this before. I've had a Chocovania on the show prior, and we also talked about Pop Team Epic. I feel like that show was made specifically for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of people enjoy like the humor of it and like everything, but sometimes they go to places that are so obscure that I am surprised that
Right.
B Cup mentions it. Recently they've had in season 2 of Pop Team Epic, they had like a Final Fantasy 14 thing, but I'm like, yeah, sure. Final Fantasy 14 is a huge thing, and also B Cup has like good tidings with Square Enix, so they can do like he's worked with Square Enix before on like a bunch of things.
Mm-hmm.
Especially for April Fool stuff for Valkyrie Profile. But there was one moment, I mentioned this before on the Chocovania show, but I'll mention it again here. There was one moment in season 1 where they reference a speed run, a Japanese speed run, to Winnie the Pooh Home Run Derby.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And no, like I watched that speed run back in the day when I was like playing Winnie the Pooh Home Run Derby, and I was like, oh hey, let me see what people are doing, and I was like watching that video, and it recognized like the tone of like the text to speech narrator
Yeah.
related that's like saying like what type of throws are coming out. Like it's not cheating per se or anything like that. It's just like visual recognition or whatever. And
Yeah.
like she was saying like a Medito and everything, and like I recognized the tone, and then Pop Team Epic referenced it of all things, and then at that point I was like, how can I not love this show? It's like, who is this for, right? Who is gonna get that? Is what I was thinking to myself.
That the show is art.
It is. It's not made for normal people.
No, it's not. Not in the slightest.
Normal people wound up liking it, and like they think they're in on the joke. And I'm like, no, you guys are not in on the joke. I'm in on the joke. B Cup is like a fucking. He leans into otaku culture, and I'm not talking about surface level otaku culture. I'm talking about deep,
Yeah.
deep into otaku culture,
No, yeah, for sure.
and
I fucking love that show.
and it's phenomenal. I talked about it last time too. It's just like the French bits in season 1, and they just hired a random studio to like make stuff for Pop Team Epic, and like they didn't explain what Pop Team Epic was to those guys. They just showed them the character designs, and then the French studio was like they didn't get the joke and they didn't get Pop Team Epic, so they were just like, let me just like make these characters in France, and like their experiences in France, and they acted so unlike themselves in those bits. I'm like, nothing like Pop Team Epic. Like, I mean, I'm glad that Pop Team Epic exists because like nothing is like it. They do insane things in that show. But yeah.
No,
so yeah,
they're wild. I love it.
so yeah, that's our favorite comedy anime.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have any other shout outs for like any other shows.
I have one. It's a bit of a spicy one, and I think that's the fan base for it to blame.
Yeah.
Osamatsu's pretty good.
Oh, Osamatsu's great. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that show.
Yeah,
I think
it's
the
very
fan
funny.
base
Yeah.
has really spoiled the waters on that one, but I'm not gonna let it get in the way.
I mean, I don't interact with any fandom ever, so I'm living a better life for it.
No, yeah, you are. That show's very funny though. So
yeah. Osamatsu is great.
It's one of those shows that, again, like we were kind of sucks, and that's what's great about them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next up is last question of the night. I'm just gonna give a quick fast refresh just in case anybody else put another question on there. Oh wait, we did get new questions. Okay, next question from Scrabble Trom at unknown data 1249 on Twitter. Asks, Azoo, I've been loving your Sega console works, and I would totally be up for seeing a zine/video essay collecting them all. With both of you working on or pitching projects at the moment, what would each of you describe as your biggest hurdle in getting them off the ground?
Oh boy. Oh, those are good ones. Wow.
I got
the first one.
Yeah.
Let me go ahead and answer that first one real quick. I've wanted to do something like that for a long time, and just one day, just out of nowhere, just make a YouTube series. This is for reference for all 10 people that will hear me say this, because this would be like 2 hours into this recording.
Yeah.
but like I do plan on, like, one day, if it ever gets far, to make custom mold for this controller yet. I have planned on making an extremely elaborate hoax of like old gaming magazine to make it seem like the Dreamcast released in this state.
Oh.
And I wanted that to just drop one day on the internet. See who finds.
Oh, that would be such a great zine too.
Yeah, that was the plan that I had in mind. I wanted to make a Dreamcast magazine that featured a list of like the ultimate Dreamcast games collection, like the top 20 best Dreamcast games, and like half of them were like timeline released on GameCube or Xbox or PS2, you know? Maybe even a few games that don't even exist in our timeline. Sonic Adventure 3 is on the top 5, you know, or some shit like that. And crazy things like that. And then like and it says at the end like a sneak peek for the Sega 360 that just got announced at E3 2005, shit like that, you know?
I feel like this would be a very fun project. I think like you don't need to go too hard on it, like not make like full like 60-page or 80-page zine. Like,
no, just a really small thing, but I want it to feel authentic. Feel like
you can make like a cover some articles, and like you know how games used to do, like gaming magazines used to do lists all the time,
Yeah,
stuff like that, and then like you
I have
just
a
do a few of those and then just like drop it.
do a full spread page for Nights into Dreams Director's Cut, which
Yeah.
was released in 2003 as an enhanced port of Nights into Dreams for the Dreamcast that features full motion control support and a new hub world where you go into the
It just
character where like Clarice and Elliot have their own bedrooms that have like different things you can do in them, like play with like character
oh
models as like plush toys or something, and rotate them, and all this kind of little information and stuff, and then rate the game like 5 stars because it's the best game ever made. And shit like that. You know, shit like that.
I would love to see this actually happen. It sucks that you cannot monetize this in any way because Sega would be on your ass.
No, but it would just be like it's a literal product.
Yeah.
Okay. But yeah,
Otherwise, as
it was
far
either that
as
or make a video series.
make a video
Like
series, yeah.
yeah, you know, like you remember like old gaming websites
Oh, like a mockumentary almost, like kind of thing.
like make like old videos that show like footage of games or whatever, but like they're listed as Dreamcast titles.
Oh, like lost media
Them
type stuff.
like, you know, yeah, you know how there's pages for lost media stuff where they people make like alternate timeline shit. I wanted that before this was even a thing that kids started doing with like alternate like reality shit. That's what I wanted to do with the Dreamcast, but I might end up making it a zine instead. It less work.
That I mean, yeah, that's true. Like doing stuff like editing and everything like that, it takes a lot of time. But yeah,
Yeah.
there's that. The thing that gets projects off the ground, the difficulty in that. Oh man, where do I begin? With this time, finding the time in the day to get a project like working.
Mm-hmm.
At least for me, money is also another thing. If I want to make an animated like thing, not only do I need time, but I also would like to hire people because I'm only one person. If I had all the time in the world to work on my things by myself, I mean, I'll do it, right? It's gonna take forever, but I'll do it. But
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, time and money, that's the number one hurdle that I need to clear for any project ever.
Right.
Even working on my own comic, I would love to make more of my comic. It's just I need the time for it, and I don't necessarily have the time for it. But there's that. Otherwise, as far as this Dreamcast controller model, you just need people, finding people to work with you.
Yeah.
That's the hurdle, and like I hope people listening would just like start contacting you. And
For that, yes. For my original projects, I think it is like of factors, but largely a lot of the stuff that you just mentioned.
yeah,
A lot of it is getting over like attention related disorder issues,
yeah,
and
that's
and
also
learning
like
to
yeah,
commit, well, because you're like afraid of making something because you want it to be just right, but you just got to get over that and try
yeah.
to just make it,
That's
you know.
that's a very difficult thing for a lot of people to do, to just start.
Yep,
Um,
that's where I really struggle. Yeah.
yeah, and I take it for granted now because I've been on the road of my webcomic for the longest time. But I mean, like again, for me, my hurdle was just actually starting it and learning that like it can just get better over time, and it is. It's getting better over time.
Hmm.
I'm showing like a better mastery over storytelling and like drawing too
Right.
with it. So yeah, I'd say for anybody, just like the biggest hurdle is starting and
Hmm.
getting people's attention. That's also another one. But yeah.
Yeah.
Uh and final question, let me just do a quick refresh. Yep. Okay, final question by the cool drawing guy
Yo, shout outs to the cool drawing guy.
at cool
I
drawing guy on Twitter. Shout outs.
Yeah.
I'm a
Yeah, shout outs to him. He's really cool. Uh he's been a fan of my work for a while, and I'm his work. And
yeah.
yeah, been following
I'm
him
putting
for a
all
minute. He's
the
dope.
people on screen right now on YouTube for anybody listening to like, see who these people are.
Yeah,
But
he's
yeah,
dope. Big shout outs to him. Yeah.
what are some wells you consistently draw from when you need inspiration? Some art and music you consistently engage with when you're out of juice.
Oh
And
boy.
I think this is like a fun one to end off on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um when it comes to art. I mean, like we talked about a lot of my inspirations tonight in regards of like the video game sphere, but I like a lot of indie film, and I like a
Hmm.
lot of indie animation,
Yep,
a
yep.
whole lot. Big fan of a lot of those things. I like a lot of I'd say the more off kilter stuff. I'm a big fan of Masaki Yuasa.
Yeah.
He's one of my big inspirations. I love Jamie Hewlett, of course. He's like one of my top dogs, always has been for a long. As far as art goes, those are some of my biggest ones. I'm sure I'm missing some really major ones when I say that. Of course, the classic Cartoon Network cartoons library of animation is like one of my biggest inspirations too.
Yeah.
Like
It's
anything that Danny Antonucci, Gendy Tartakovsky, and Craig McCracken has touched, I am probably in love with. Yeah, so all that artistically, yes, but if you got me on the music,
oh
you
yeah.
get me down a whole rabbit hole.
The
The first ones I could really mention off the top of my head, I got a shout out to Stereo. I got to give a shout out to the Avalanches, to Gorillas, but mostly their first three records. I'm not as big on their more recent work, but I like Beck, of course.
oh, Beck's a
Uh,
classic, yeah.
Beck's a classic. I mean, you just I could go on about music forever.
Yeah.
Really, I listen to everything with no holds barred. Yes, that includes country music. I do have some fondness for a few of those.
Yeah, there's good country out there.
Give a shout out to some Brooks and Dunn
Hey,
and some maybe a little bit of Alex. Yeah, yeah. Let's be real about it. But yeah, like no, like I fucking love music, and every time I go deep into the wells for like inspiration, it's always going just trying to find something new. Really, I love digging like, but a lot of my favorites tend to be more in the jazz fusion section. I love Lewis, and I love more recent efforts at that too. I love Lewis Cole and Knower, like great musicians. I love that shit. But if I really looked at for my own projects, like Odd Hustle, especially, I think to go back to the Apples in Stereo, they were one of the first ones that really spoke to me musically, and I keep coming back to them, and like anytime I listen to them, I feel like a surge of energy that reminds me why I started doing art in the first place. Just bring right back. Like I don't know, man. Like there's a lot artistic and musical that I
yeah.
really dig.
I think music has played a large part in both of our lives actually.
Mm-hmm.
And just the way how we grew up. And it's no shock that like, the games that we like do end up having a lot large influence or like
Very music, yeah, yeah, and but they also have a lot of too, like a lot of the best games that stick with me are inclined as well. I really
the best games that stick with you are what you said?
very musically inclined as well.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
rhythm games, I love rhythm games too.
love rhythm games.
So it's I've never music's a big part of like both of our lives. But yeah, it's nice to like get that input from you and like so people can hear like, the stuff that motivates you, that gets you your
Right.
juices flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Was that the last part of that question? Yeah, some art and music you consistently engage with when you're out of juice. Yeah. For me, I listen. It's tough. It's tough to really put it down. But
Oh no, I get it.
that's art. As far as art goes, you remember that Bob Peak book we talked about like way back
Oh
when?
yeah, that Bob P art book, incredible man.
I own it right now. A friend
I
of mine
know it's
got it.
so cool.
I look at that whenever again, if you've seen my latest artwork that I've been putting up online, it's heavily inspired by Bob Peak.
Ah,
Heavily.
the art floodgates just opened up. I started remembering
You start remembering
uh,
what?
a bunch of influences all of a sudden.
Yeah.
I gotta shout them out. We got Bob Peak in there, but I also got to give a shout out to Jonathan Edwards. His background work is some of the best I've ever seen,
Oh yeah, yeah.
and some of his caricatures are incredible. Speaking of caricatures, can we give a shout out to fucking Robert Valley? Oh God.
Yep, Robert Valley is like one of my
Oh wow.
all-time favorites.
Wow, Robert Valley's incredible. Let's see who else. Who else? Brian Lee O'Malley, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Like just extremely influential to my work.
Oh,
Always has been.
Corey Lewis. That's for me.
Yeah.
I need to like really put
Okay.
it up. If I did not pick up Shark Knife, if I did not pick up Sun Bakery, my comic would not exist in the way that it does right now currently.
Oh yeah.
So I will always give a huge shout out, and like I'm glad that I'm even talking with the guy. Like he's like turned idol into like buddy that I like hit up every now and then, and like we support each other too, and like that's always fun.
Nice.
But yeah,
I
uh,
just realized I'm running out of time. I just got a phone call, so
yeah.
gotta wrap it
So
up in just a second.
we'll wrap it up right now. But yeah, thank you for coming on, Cody slash Azukara
Absolutely
slash
no
Azu.
problem.
It's
No problem at
always
all.
it's always a pleasure to have you on, and like if
Of course.
if we had infinite time, we would have just went on to like the Sonic talk. But like there's
We
gonna
already have gone on like a
yeah
man. Like you're one of my best. Like, of course.
3 hour show. I'm sure that's pretty good. But yeah, that that was for everybody listening right now. It's Azoo on Newgrounds, AZOO, and if you want to follow him on Twitter, it's at Azookara, AZOOKARA. This has been
Yep.
Gents on Newgrounds. This has been Radio Graffiti. Thank you guys for joining, and we're gonna be leaving you guys off with Jimmy Tenor. The song right now playing is Caravan. Adios, amigos.
See ya.